and seek your divine forgiveness, believing that your love and compassion will deliver us all to your promised salvation. Bless the corners of this hall, we pray, so that it will be filled with your Spirit. Let it be your will that we may be witnesses and instruments of your divine plan. Philippine Senate, its senators, their staff, the media, our collaborators, and pray for your divine hand as to always be upon us, guiding our every thought, enlightening our every action. Enable, Lord God, your grace to come upon us and to take hold of us. Bestow us with wisdom and righteousness so that we may be able to serve the Filipino people according to your will. As we adjourn for the upcoming midterm elections, may we be guided by your divine will reflected in the people's expression. I fervently pray for this honored chamber to keep championing the people's good and welfare. May the work we do find meaningful transformation as instruments of positive change for the country, for the people, empowerment, and nation building. In our unified prayer for the ultimate good of our land, we implore your light and guidance in everything that we shall say and do as we fulfill the mission you have blessed our lives with. May we be able to truly live and work as legislators for God and for the people. May we be channels through which your divine plan for humanity will find completion. Amen.
Amen. Secretary will please call the roll.
Roll call of members. The Honorable Senator Binay, Senator Cayetano Alan, Senator Cayetano Pia, Senator De La Rosa, Senator Ejercito, Senator Estrada, Senator Gatchalian, Senator Go, Senator Ontiveros, Senator Lapid, Senator Legarda,
Present online.
Senator Marcos, Senator Padilla, Senator Pimentel, Senator Poe, Senator Revilla, Senator Tolentino, Senator Tulfo, Senator Villanueva, Senator Villar Cynthia, Senator Villar Mark, Senator Zubiri, the Senate President.
Can you turn on the audio of Senator Legarda, please? Who is in technical? We count her presence. With 18 senators physically present, 1 senator virtually present, for a total of 19, Chair declares the presence of a quorum. Majority Leader, make that 20 with Senator Bongo.
Mr. President, before we proceed with the business for the day, I'd like to acknowledge several guests of our colleagues. Guests of Senator Alan Peter Cayetano, the local Youth Development Office of Taguig, headed by Attorney Aldrin Sinues, Yuri Kian, Mary Rose Lau, Jerry Nico Wanko, Fernando Nabo, and other guests. Guests of our good friend, Senator Nancy Binay, senior citizens of Barangay Pinagkaisahan, Makati City. Guests of Senator De La Rosa, Cesar Saloma, President's Court Stenographers Association of the Philippines, Ronalie Almares, Jasmine Diomse, Leonardo Calalang. Guests of the Senate, State Field School Incorporated, Bacoor, Cavite, students from Senior High School Department taking up Humanities and Social Sciences. Guests of Senator Jingoy Estrada, Mayor Ronald Apostol of Cabangan, Zambales, and Vice Mayor Attorney Jonathan Bactad of San Antonio, Zambales, together with their councilors. Guests of the Senate, the Legal Network for Truthful Elections, Lente, together with the Citizens Congress Watchdog of Taiwan, headed by Mr. Tung Ru Jeffrey She. Guests of Senator Grace Poe, Dr. Melanie Pescadilla, Provincial Veterinary League of the Philippines, Dr. Mary Grace Bustamante, Veterinary League of the Philippines, Norman Tan of the Department of Agriculture. Guests of Senator Robin Hood Padilla, UP and CIPAG, Philippine Society for Public Administration, Association of Public Administration, and DAP Graduate School of Public Administration. We We honor our guests, Mr. President. One more, Mr. President. Students from the Mason Authentic. We honor our guests, Mr. President.
To the aforementioned guests, welcome to your Senate. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. President, if
What
I
is the
may.
pleasure of the Honorable
Yes,
Villanueva?
Mr. President, may I join the Majority Leader and the Senate President in welcoming our guests from the gallery. I just have to give honor to whom honor is due. My professor from UP and SIPAG is here, Professor Alex Brillantes. And of course, Mr. President, our guests from the National Press Club, the officers are also here with us. Thank you, Mr. President.
Again, welcome to your Senate. Majority Leader.
Mr. President, I move that we dispense with the reading of the journal of the 47th session, Tuesday, January 28, 2025, and consider the same as approved.
Any objection? Hearing none, motion is approved.
Mr. President, I move that we defer the approval of the journal of the 49th session, Tuesday, February 4, 2025.
Any objection? Hearing none, motion is approved.
Mr. President, 1 minute suspension, Mr. President.
Session is suspended. Leader.
Mr. President, considering that Senate Bill number 2699 or the bill on Konektadong Pinoy is a certified measure, I'd like to request the Secretary to read the letter of certification from President Ferdinand Romualdez Marcos Jr.
Senate Secretary is directed to comply.
Malacanang Palace, Manila, 27 January 2025. Senator Francis Cheese G. Escudero, Senate President, Senate of the Philippines, Pasay City. Mr. Senate President, pursuant to the provisions of Article 6, Section 26, Paragraph 2 of the 1987 Constitution, I hereby certify to the necessity of the immediate enactment of Senate Bill number 2699, an act establishing a comprehensive and inclusive data transmission and connectivity framework for the Philippines to facilitate the development of a robust and resilient communications infrastructure and establish a competitive and innovation-driven data transmission industry that will safeguard the public interest, promote fair competition, encourage investment in critical digital networks, and equip the government and the public with the necessary tools to maintain vital communications channels and effectively respond to emergency situations. Best regards, very truly yours, the President of the Philippines.
Majority Leader.
Mr. President, before I move to consider on third reading Senate Bill number 2699, this representation, 6 recognition, just to spread into the records my intent yesterday for purposes of statutory construction, Mr. President.
The gentleman may proceed.
Mr. President, yesterday when I proposed the amendment on line 5 and 4 of page 22, my intent, and let this be placed on the record, is for the students to have a mandatory discount of internet fees, Mr. President. The telcos should be mandated to provide substantial discount to students, college, high schools, all use, and even elementary students using the internet for their studies. Yun lamang po, Mr. President, at yun po ang bahagi ng aking legislative intent as accepted by His Honor Senator
Noted
Alan
and
Cayetano.
entered into the records.
Mr.
Majority
President, I move to consider on third reading Senate Bill number 2699. I so move, Mr. President.
Consideration on third reading of the aforementioned bill is now in order. Senate Secretary is directed to read the title only of the measure and to proceed to roll call vote.
An act establishing a comprehensive and inclusive data transmission and connectivity framework for the Philippines. Roll call vote. The Honorable Senator Binay, Senator Cayetano Alan, Senator Cayetano Pia, Senator De La Rosa, Senator Ejercito, Senator Estrada, Senator Gatchalian, Senator Go, Senator Ontiveros, Senator Lapid, Senator Legarda, Senator Marcos, Senator Padilla, Senator Pimentel, Senator Poe, Senator Revilla, Senator Tolentino,
Yes.
Senator Tulfo, Senator Villanueva, Senator Villar Cynthia, Senator Villar Mark, Senator Zubiri, the Senate President.
With 16 affirmative votes, 0 negative, 0 abstention, Senate Bill number 2699 is approved on third and final reading. Majority Leader.
Mr. President, the following are seeking the floor to express their explanation of vote. Senators Grace Poe, Gatchalian, and this representation in that order.
Senator Grace Poe is recognized to enter her explanation of vote.
No, thank you, Mr. President. I would like to thank the sponsor, Senator Allen, for shepherding this critical measure. I'm also an author of this bill. We rank fourth in terms of time spent on social media. At least it will open up more players para mas mabilis ang daloy ng impormasyon sa ating bansa. Kaya ito ay isang mabuting bagay na nagawa natin bago tayo nag-adjourn by easing registration and injecting much needed competition in our ICT industry. We hope to achieve the internet infra that our digitally hungry kababayans deserve. We again thank our Senate President and then also the Chair for sponsoring this critical measure and look forward to its implementation. Thank you.
Mr. President, Senator Gatchalian is seeking the floor.
Senator Gatchalian is recognized for his brief explanation of vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise today to cast my yes vote for the Konektadong Pinoy. Sa panahon ngayon, ang mahinang internet ay hindi lang abala, kundi sagabal sa pag-unlad. A weak communication structure means a lot of missed opportunities, limited access to essential services, and increasing gap between those who can keep up with the demands of the modern economy and those who are left behind. Sa madaling salita, ang hindi konektado, siya ang napag-iiwanan. The passage of this measure will facilitate the development of a robust and resilient information and communications infrastructure that will empower education, drive economic growth, and strengthen public services and enhance disaster response. Walang mag-aaral na dapat mahuli sa klase dahil lang sa mahina o walang signal. Walang negosyanteng dapat malugi dahil hindi niya maabot ang kanyang mga mamimili online. At higit sa lahat, walang komunidad ang dapat maputulan ng komunikasyon, lalo na sa panahon ng sakuna. Beyond expanding internet access, this proposed measure will establish a competitive and innovation-driven data transmission industry that will safeguard the public interest, promote fair competition, encourage investment in critical digital networks, and equip both the government and the public with necessary tools to maintain vital communication channels. Matagal nang reklamo ng ating mga kababayan ang mabagal at mahal na internet. Oras na para tapusin ang monopoly mindset at bigyan daan ang patas at makabagong kompetisyon upang mas umunlad ang ating digital infrastructure. I vote yes because a konektadong Pinoy is a stronger, smarter, and more empowered Filipino, and a digitally connected nation is a nation that is ready to compete and succeed in the future. Thank you, Mr. President.
Noted and entered into the record. Senator Villanueva, what is your pleasure?
Mr. President, may I be allowed to just explain my vote?
The gentleman may proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, dear colleagues. As one of the authors and the co-sponsors of the measure, we'd like to thank and spread into the records our commendation to the sponsor, our distinguished colleague, Brother Senator Alan Peter Compañero Cayetano for his hard work in pushing for this bill, which will finally address the long-standing issues of digital connectivity in our country today. In an era where reliable and affordable internet access is a necessity and not even a luxury, Mr. President, this bill ensures that no Filipino is left behind. Whether for education, business, government services, or disaster response, connectivity, Mr. President, is a lifeline. This is especially true for our learners, for whom access to the internet can make or break them in their schooling and beyond. The government recognizes this as an urgent need, and that's why in the 2025 General Appropriations Act, the Department of Information and Communications Technology has been allocated 7.5 billion pesos to sustain the free public internet access program. With the enactment of the Konektadong Pinoy Act, we are very much hopeful, Mr. President, that more resources can be dedicated to ensuring that everyone has access to the internet. We believe that digital inclusion is essential for progress, and this bill is a key milestone in building a connected, empowered, and future-ready Philippines. For these reasons, Mr. President, I vote yes. Maraming salamat po at pagpalain tayong lahat ng ating Panginoong Diyos.
Noted and entered into the records. Majority Floor Leader may proceed to explain his vote.
Mr. President, before I explain my vote, the Senate President Pro Temp is seeking the floor.
Senator Jinggoy Estrada,
I yield to
Senate
the
President Pro Tem. What is your
Senate
pleasure, sir?
President Pro Temp.
Explanation of vote,
Gentleman may proceed.
Mr. President. Mr. President, esteemed colleagues, I express my full and unwavering support for Senate Bill number 2699, also known as the Konektadong Pinoy Act. It is with great honor and responsibility that I cast my vote in favor of this landmark legislation, which seeks to bridge the digital divide and ensure that every Filipino has access to fast, reliable, and affordable internet connectivity. In today's rapidly advancing digital age, access to the internet is no longer a luxury, but a necessity. It is the great equalizer, providing opportunities for education, employment, business, and even government services. However, the reality remains that millions of Filipinos, especially those in far-flung provinces and marginalized communities, continue to struggle with poor connectivity, high data costs, and limited access to digital resources. This bill aims to change that reality. The Konektadong Pinoy Act mandates the development of a comprehensive digital infrastructure program that will expand broadband access across the nation. It calls for strategic investments in fiber optic networks, satellite technology, and other means of connectivity to ensure that no Filipino is left behind in the digital revolution. Mr. President, dear colleagues, our vote today is not just a policy decision. It is a promise to our people, a promise that we will do everything in our power to ensure that no Filipino is disconnected from opportunities simply because of where they live. It is a commitment to inclusivity, progress, and a digitally empowered nation. With this, Mr. President, I proudly vote yes. Let us move forward together toward a truly konektadong Pilipinas. Maraming salamat po.
Noted and entered into the records. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. President, let me place into the records some salient portions of my explanation of vote without prejudice and the submission of an exhaustive explanation. Mr. President, nagpapasalamat po ako kay Senator Alan Peter Cayetano dahil tinanggap po yung aking mga proposed amendments, namely prioritizing areas near educational institutions in unserved and underserved areas. This amendment will ensure that equitable internet access across the country will be assured, particularly in those regions lacking sufficient infrastructure, thereby hindering economic growth, education, and social inclusion. Second, ensuring continuous and uninterrupted data transmission during emergencies and calamities. Kailangan po natin ito dahil po pag merong mga kalamidad, ang atin po mga mobile networks lamang at satellite phones ang nakakatulong. Thirdly, and this was part of my earlier manifestation, the introduction of discount for student users. Mr. President, collaborating with telcos to make internet use access more affordable for students will enhance digital literacy and support their needs. Investing in our youth is crucial for building a brighter future for our nation. I vote yes, Mr. President. Thank you.
Noted and entered into the records. Before we proceed, Chair would like to correct the number of votes cast in favor of the measure because of technical problems with the audio of Senator Legarda. Her vote was not earlier recorded, so it's 17 votes in favor of the measure. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. President, I voted in favor of the measure. Yes.
Yes, as duly noted by the Chair.
Thank
Noted.
you.
Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. President, before we proceed with the other measures, I move for the approval of the journal for the 29th session, November 5 to 7, 11 to 14, 18 to 19, 2024.
Any objection? Hearing none, motion is approved. Aforementioned journals are now deemed approved. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. President, we are in receipt of the Conference Committee report on the disagreeing provisions of Senate Bill number 2804 and House Bill number 11230. These are the bills on the New Development Bank of the Philippines Act. With that, I move to recognize Senator Mark Villar, Chairman of the Senate panel, to give the highlights of the Conference Committee report. And so move, Mr. President.
Senator Villar is recognized to sponsor the Bicameral Conference Committee report. You may proceed, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. And distinguished colleagues, a pleasant afternoon to all of you. I have the honor of submitting for ratification the Bicameral Conference Committee report on the disagreeing provisions of Senate Bill number 2804 and House Bill number 11230, otherwise known as the New Development Bank of the Philippines Act. Mr. President, the Senate conferees, alongside with our House of Representatives counterparts, have resolved to adopt the Senate version as the Bicameral Conference Committee's working draft. Mr. President, this proposed measure will enable the DBP to continuously support national development goals while ensuring that the benefits of these projects reach ordinary Filipinos in terms of job opportunities, better services, and improved livelihoods. One of the most distinct features of this bill is the increased capitalization to be provided to DBP, which would give them heightened ability to issue more loans to fund critical projects for priority sectors such as infrastructure, health, social services, and agriculture. With this new charter of the DBP, we could expect increased implementation of basic public services for our Filipinos. This amended charter will expand DBP's powers and functions, which would enable it to live out its development governmental mandate while maintaining sound profitability and a strong balance sheet. To conclude, I would like to thank the members of the Bicameral Conference panel of both the Senate and House of Representatives for their invaluable contribution to the making of this bill. I would also like to express my gratitude to our colleagues for their unyielding support for this new DBP charter, particularly to our Senate President, Chis Escudero, Senator Joel Villanueva, and Senator Cynthia Villar for their authorship of the bill. My sincerest thanks also goes to our Majority Leader, Senator Francis Tolentino, and Minority Leader, Senator Coco Pimentel, for their beneficial contributions to the measure's refinement. Mr. President, with the permission of the body, I move that the joint explanatory statement of the disagreeing provisions of Senate Bill number 2804 and House Bill number 11230 be read in toto into the record and that the Bicameral Conference Committee report be ratified. Thank you, Mr. President.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, motion is approved. The Conference Committee report on the disagreeing provisions of Senate Bill number 2804 and House Bill number 11230 is hereby approved and ratified. Session is suspended for a minute.
Mr. President, I move that we resume consideration of Senate Bill number 890. This is the bill on the right sizing the national government. So move, Mr. President.
Is there an objection? There being none, the resumption of consideration of Senate Bill 890 is now in order.
Mr. President, the parliamentary status of the bill is that we have approved the amendment by substitution on January 20, 2025 without prejudice to the members asking questions on the measure. With that, I move to recognize a sponsor, Senate President Francis Chis Escudero, and to propound questions, our good Minority Leader. I move for the recognition, Mr. President.
Hearing no objection, motion is approved. Senate President Escudero and the Minority Leader, Senator Coco Pimentel, are both recognized.
Mr. President, can I ask for a few minutes suspension so the entire plenary hall can settle down because it's too noisy for.
Can we just
for this
simply ask?
representation?
Can we just simply ask the presiding officer to kindly order the sergeant at arms to impose order within the plenary and within the chamber?
The Sergeant at Arms is directed to impose order.
Mr. President, I insist on my minute suspension. I'll approach the sponsor, Mr. President.
Session suspended for a minute. Majority Leader.
Mr. President, I reiterate my previous motion.
Can we
Restore order in the
restore
plenary.
order
Mr.
in
President.
the gallery? Those people at the back, please observe proper decorum.
Lesser years. Mas malaki.
Mr. President, the Senate President, the sponsor of the measure, and to interpolate with the Senator Joel Villanueva, Mr. President, for the right sizing bill.
All right, the Senate President,
President, Majority Leader, before I ask 2-3 questions, Mr. President, I would just like the importance, Mr. President, of passing a piece of legislation that will ultimately enhance the institutional capacity of our government agencies to improve public service delivery while ensuring, and let me emphasize this, Mr. President, while ensuring the welfare of millions of civil servants. We would like to again put on record, Mr. President, that right sizing is not synonymous with downsizing. As reflected in the substitute bill introduced by the good sponsor, our Senate President, this aims to achieve our social and economic development goals while promoting fiscal responsibility and the efficient use of taxpayer money and guaranteeing, again, let me emphasize, guaranteeing that our government workers are protected every step of the way. And with that, Mr. President, may I be allowed to just ask some questions to the good sponsor if he would allow this representation, Mr. President?
We confirm the statement bill that we filed in substitution of the version filed by Senator Joel Villanueva. And by way of difference, it is actually essentially the same, Mr. President. Only that we added some provisions that was the product of our consultative meeting, namely, to add some employees' organizations to various stages of the right sizing process. Number 2, and number 3, we placed a different formula which is inversely proportional to the length of service of the employee, of the benefits he or she will be receiving should she be affected or he be affected by this program. We also clarified, Mr. President, Your Honor, the requirements that the government should undertake and comply with before they can affect any optimization on any agency of government. But essentially, the heart and soul of the bill would be essentially the same as what Senator Villanueva filed and what this representation filed before the substitution.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I'd like to make sure and spread into the records because just by listening to the statements given to us by our good sponsor, I am actually seeing most, if not all, of these items and provisions that he is mentioning as part of the bill that this representation filed, which is Senate Bill number what we are deliberating upon right now here in the plenary is Senate Bill number 890, authored by the Senate President. I also remember and would like to state for the record that during the consulted number 2502 will be used as the basis of the amendment by substitution. So we again would like to spread into the records our sincerest thanks and gratitude to our Senate President for considering the measures, the bills that this representation filed, Mr. President. Thank you. Mr. President, on my second question, Mr. Components of right sizing or optimization are included in this measure that are not found in the reorganizational reforms of previous administrations, Mr. President.
Not only did organizations create offices, the main distinction, Mr. President, is that none of those laws actually outlined the requirements for being looked for by most of our colleagues. For example, a study. No such law previously passed nor a provision of the Administrative Code required a specific study to be had before any optimization can be done on any agency. Number two, consultation and consultative requirements were also never provided for. Perhaps, Mr. President, these are the top two reasons why, hopefully, under this piece of legislation.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I'm glad and appreciate this measure under this committee report on optimizing the executive branch will be created to oversee the implementation of the government optimization program. It says here, among others, it shall conduct studies on the mandates, functions, programs, projects, operation structure, and structure of agencies concerned. So I just want to put that on record that I'm glad that it's part of it. Mr. President, lastly, we have been talking to some of the labor groups, and some of them are worried that this might probably result in thousands of civil servants losing their jobs, etc. At ito rin po yung pinakamahalaga para sa atin, no, bilang representative ng ating mga kababayan, ng mga manggagawa natin, yung pong masiguro na mapoprotektahan natin. How many workers are estimated to be affected by government optimization program? Matatanggalan po ba talaga sila ng trabaho? What safeguards are in place under the measure that would ensure the protection of their welfare, Mr. President?
400,000 civil servants yung
Kagalang-galang na Pangulo at sa kinatawan mula sa Bulacan, Senador mula sa Bulacan, session ng paglikha ng mga bagong pwesto na mas angkop, bagay at kinakailangan ng panahon at ng serbisyong dapat binibigay ng pamahalaan sa ating mga kababayan. So hindi ko po sasagutin ng inyong katanungan kung ilan ang matatanggal. Ang babanggitin ko po ay malipat, pero hindi nangangahulugang automatic na ibabawas o tatanggalin. At ang bilang na binibigay ng DBM sa kanilang nais target ay humigit kumulang 400,000 posisyon. Pero kabilang, ulitin ko rito, ang pag-upskill sa kanila, ang pag-promote sa kanila, ang paglipat sa kanila sa ibang mas kailangang posisyon at opisina, at hindi lamang nangangahulugan na pagtanggal po kami target na posisyon na i-optimize para mas maging efficient ang pamahalaan.
Gusto ko pong susugan, Ginoong Pangulo, yung binanggit ng ating sponsor, na yung optimization is not only limited to the elimination of redundancies, overlaps, and duplications in operations. But I think it is important to note that it entails the possible creation of an agency or a unit or a position which is deemed necessary for the agency or the department's operations or performance po ng mga essential functions. Nakita ko po dito sa Section 13 ng panukalang batas, nagpo-provide po ng retirement benefits and separation incentives for personnel who may be affected by the optimization program. Gusto lamang po natin, Mr. President, na siguruhin na kung meron man po na may mag-apply ng retirement o separation from the agencies, meron pong incentives na makukuha at mapoprotektahan ang ating mga manggagawa. Yun po ba ay nakasaad dito po sa panukalang batas na ito?
Opo, at yun din ang pinagkaiba nito sa ibang panukalang batas. Pamahalaan na posibleng mas bata ay makakatanggap ng mas malaking benepisyo kumpara sa mas matagal na may mas malaking benepisyo ng matatanggap mula itong mga pagbabagong ito sa organisasyon ng pamahalaan.
Ginoong Pangulo, may EO number 366 na kung saan po meron pong the Civil Service Commission to a recipient agencies which needed additional personnel. May mga ganito po bang mekanismo rin na maaaring ipatupad ng panukalang ito na kung sakaling hindi na sila pakikinabangan ng isang ahensya or may overlapping na yung function na pwede silang ilipat sa ibang ahensya ng ating pamahalaan?
Opo, kabilang po sa pwedeng magawa ay yung tinatawag nating transfer at maliban po dyan, ito rin ang isang unique feature ng panukalang batas, ay meron din po tayong tinatawag na programa para sa upskilling. Para ika nga mabigyan sila ng kinakailangang kaalaman o hindi man talento para magampanan ng ibang tungkulin na maaaring kailangan ng pamahalaan na pwede pa rin nilang punuan bagaman hindi nila kasalukuyang ginagawa.
Maraming salamat, Ginoong Pangulo. Dahil kagaya, for example, Mr. President, nung EO number 366, ang gobyerno po nag-generate ng 4-point incentives and terminal leave benefits to personnel who opted to retire or be separated from the service. So, Ginoong Pangulo, yung huling katanong na in place or iniisip o kahit estimate na kung saan magkano yung matitipid ng ating gobyerno. Nang sa ganun po, malinaw na maipakita natin sa taong bayan na ito ang way to go. And I believe that, Mr. President, because at the end of the day, yung mga overlapping functions, ating budget deliberations dito sa Senado, ang dami natin nakikita na may mga ahensya na ng pamahalaan. Hindi na ako magpapaligoy-ligoy pa. Yung optical media board, ano pa ba gagawin natin sa optical media board? Things like that, no? And I can cite several agencies and bureaus in the government na I think we really need to act upon, Mr. President.
Mr. President, Your Honor, given that the amount estimated in the cost-benefit analysis of the DBM would be, they just gave ranges, Mr. President.
Yes.
3% of the estimated number of affected personnel that they are trying to focus on, it's a 1.28 billion annual savings. If it reaches a high of 7% of the focused positions, it will be 2.69 billion in savings. But if you multiply that, Mr. President, by the long-term benefits of the measure, although the amounts may seem small, it will redound to a larger figure.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Again, almost 4 billion a year.
Yes, that is correct.
Masasave ng ating pamahalaan. Kaya po tayo ay naniniwala sa panukalang batas na ito at nakita natin, Ginoong Pangulo, may mga mekanismo para protektahan ang ating mga kababayan, maging ang ating mga manggagawa o kawani ng ating pamahalaan. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our distinguished sponsor, our Senate President, for taking the cudgels in sponsoring this very important piece of legislation. And let me spread into the records that this representation fully supports this measure. Maraming salamat, Ginoong Pangulo, at pagpalain tayong lahat ng ating Panginoong Diyos. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President, to our distinguished gentleman from the distinguished gentleman from Bulacan for his inputs.
Thank you, Senator Villanueva, Majority Leader.
Mr. President, the minority leader is seeking the floor.
The
I move that he be
Minority Leader,
recognized.
Senator Coco Pimentel. The next Congressman of the City of Marikina is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President, who will give the nickname of Nostradamus to. Thank you. With the permission of our Senate President, who is the sponsor and author, also the author of this measure on right sizing. But actually, Mr. President, from the interpellation of Senator Villanueva, I think we should be changing our terminology. It's no longer, it's definitely not downsizing. It is, in the title, it's right sizing, but actually we're introducing the concept of optimization, Mr. President. May we know more about what is this new concept that this bill is really about, the optimization of not only the size but also of the operations of the government, Mr. President.
Mr. President, it's actually the same, only that right sizing has been given such a bad connotation in previous years that it means downsizing, it means cutting down, it means retrenchment, it means removing employees. That's one of the main reasons why, without any pun intended, that's one of the main reasons why we changed the name actually. Although it essentially means the same based on a dictionary, we wanted to emphasize that with this change of name, it does not only mean reducing the number of employees, it may actually include increasing the number of hires in government, but more relevant ones and what are really needed instead of what we have right now.
This is a substitute bill already. So, did the original bill contain the word optimization?
Yes.
So, nandun na siya?
Yes.
From the very start. Okay. So, from the very start, that has been. So, that's why I'm asking this, because what is the problem that we are trying to address with this measure, Mr. President?
Several, Mr. President. To name a few, number one, everybody has been looking for a study, but it was not actually, and has never actually been required. But it is indeed required, as we have all heard as we have all heard from our colleagues. So, among others, Mr. President, this bill seeks to require such a study before optimizing any agency of government. Number two, we also specified representation of employees' organizations, relevant employees' organizations, at every stage of the process in order to give them a voice and to keep them abreast of what is going on, what the plans are, and what the studies are saying. And number three, Mr. President, would be insofar as the benefits to be given to affected employees, not only by way of a separation pay, but also the possibility of retooling, reskilling in order to perform other functions.
Now, we are going to give employees' organizations a role in the process that we are making possible because of the bill. But right now, there is no such process available. Tama po ba yan?
Yes, Mr. President. Perhaps that's one of the main reasons why right-sizing attempts before did not or have not succeeded. Because it always faced stiff opposition without a mechanism for dialogue.
And we are creating a committee on optimizing the executive branch because our bill, itong panukalang batas, only specifically covers the executive branch but not the whole of the executive branch, because yung mga GOCCs under the GCG are not covered by this measure. Tama po ba yan?
Yes, Mr. President, Your Honor, because under the GCG law, they are authorized already to optimize the government-owned and controlled corporations. And in fact, we can give you the list of the GOCCs that they have already optimized the staffing pattern and organizational structure of the total number of GOCCs.
Mga ilan po yun?
Out of the 119 GOCCs, the number of reorganized GOCCs are 36. Number of GOCCs with planning actions would be 25. Yung wala pa pong ginagalaw out of the 119, wala pa pong nangyayari, ay 29. We can give you the document, Mr. President.
Doon po sa 36 po ba yon yung reorganized already by the GCG?
Yes, Mr. President.
So, meron po bang pag-aaral? Ano po ang naging benepisyo? Let's see, nakatipid ba? Kumonti ba ang empleyado? Naging mas mabilis ba ang transaction time with the GOCCs? Tumaas ba ang kanilang income or dividend remittance sa Treasury?
Well, according to GCG evaluation of the GOCCs, Mr. President, there is no hard and fast rule na dumami o kumonte. May dumami, may kumonte, but whether dumami o kumonte, mas naging efficient daw yung GOCC based on the parameters, evaluation parameters that the GCG is using for GOCCs.
Tumaas ang mga score, bale?
Tumaas yung score, pero wala pong rule na tumaas pero kumonte, tumaas pero dumami. It varies, Mr. President.
Apo, apo. So, thank you. So, ilan po itong GOCCs na hindi napasa ilalim sa GCG? Ilan pa ba yan?
15 GOCCs, Mr. President, Your Honor, which are under DBM. To name a few. Would you want an idea?
Yes, pero bakit kaya? Bakit din na lang natin sila kaya linagay sa GCG from the very start?
By charter of the GCG, they are not included, Mr. President, Your Honor.
Why did we make that conscious policy decision that when we wrote the law of the GCG, we excluded around 15 GOCCs from its jurisdiction?
Based on the GCG charter, Mr. President, they do not perform any commercial functions. These are export zones. For example, Bataan, Apeco, Lung Center, Kidney Center, Phil Rice, Fibidec, Subic Bay, Metropolitan Authority, Zamboanga City Special Economic Zone. These were specifically excluded in the GCG charter.
Because they are not supposed to be earning?
They are not supposed to be income generating, Mr. That's not their primary role.
Okay. Pero as far as optimization is concerned, can GCG be the one in charge of the optimization of these 15 GOCCs?
Under this bill, Mr. President, it's under. It would be under this bill, Mr. President, not under the GCG. It will follow the processes provided for in this proposed bill.
Yes, because we know that they're not under the GCG.
Yes.
Pero si GCG nga nagagawa na nga niya for those under. How is it possible conceptually that when it comes to optimization, we will allow GCG to optimize these 15 not-for-profit GOCCs?
No. The GCG charter excludes it, Mr. President, but we can include them here if that is the desire of the Honorable Minority Floor Leader. But right now, as written in the bill, they are not they are included in the bill and not part of GCG because that was in a previous law.
Yes, I have noticed that, Mr. President. That's why I'm bringing up the idea. Kasi si GCG, nag-optimize na siya ng GOCCs. Meron lang 15 GOCC na wala sa jurisdiction ni GCG. Pero pagdating sa optimization, baka kaya na rin ni GCG maturuan ang 15 GOCCs na yon as far as optimization is concerned.
Actually, Mr. President, Your Honor, I think the reservation only that they have is that the GCG charter itself does not include these corporations, and if we will include them in the right sizing, is it going to be the intention of the author of the good gentleman rather to already place them under GCG? That would be a totally different regime altogether, Mr. President, Your Honor. Again, because they're not, their primary purpose is not income.
Yes, I know.
Generating.
That's why I was limiting my question to as far as this concept of optimization is concerned.
Again, the reservation only is that there might be some confusion that GCG would already have other powers over these corporations not intended to be under GCG to begin with. But we will submit at the proper time, Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. President.
On
Thank
any
you,
suggestions of the good gentleman.
Thank you for entertaining at least entertaining the idea, Mr. President. ito pong ating panukala ay nauna naman doon sa Department of Government Efficiency, no? Ni President Trump. No?
Nauna pong final ito, pero wala naman pong batas yun. Imbe-invento lang yata yun, Mr. President, Your Honor. I don't think there's a...
Pero ganun din ata, isa rin ata yun nasa gusto natin ma-achieve, no? Government efficiency, Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. President, Your Honor, in order to be able to make government more efficient and more cost-effective.
Mr. President, hindi ba kaya gawin na yan ngayon under present law? Kasi for example, si Department of Agrarian Reform Secretary Conrad Estrella, during the budget process, parating niya sinasabi sa atin, yung he availed of this scrap and build concept which is allowed under existing law. So can that not be resorted to without to make government more efficient, Mr. President?
Well, yes,
without need.
yes, Mr. President, Your Honor. The problem faced by the scrap and build method, Mr. President, as a rule, is that number one, as I said, although it is provided for by law in the Administrative Code of 1987, the requirements we're trying to impose under this bill is not there, like the study, like the consultation with the employees' organizations, like the giving of a different separation pay that is more equitable and justified to affected employees compared to merely receiving benefits from GSIS on the assumption that they already served long enough to receive any benefits from GSIS.
But some of the concepts within scrap and build are present or incorporated in this bill, Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. President, Your Honor, it is because, for example, abolition, creation, consolidation, merger are all tools available under this bill.
Tapos, Mr. President, hindi po ba may kapangyarihan na ang Presidente under existing law, more specifically the Administrative Code, to reorganize, if not the entire executive branch, at least a significant part of the executive branch?
That is correct, Mr. President, again, because of the absence or lack of rules on how to do it, what should be done before it is going to be applied to a particular government agency. And again, the problem of being able to give separation pay on top of GSIS benefits, assuming, again, they will be qualified to receive any such benefits from GSIS, given the short length of service they may have.
Cannot those concerns be addressed by the President or the Office of the President through the issuances of EOs, AOs, memorandum circulars to fill in the details, Mr. President?
According to DBM, Mr. President, it is best placed in the law rather than by mere administrative or executive issuances by the President because of the questions that might be raised about its constitutionality, especially with respect to the disbursement of funds.
Assuming that this bill becomes law, can the who makes the final decision, Mr. President? Is it the COEB or the President of the Republic? Especially on the abolition or a merger of government agency or body.
It will be fine. It will finally be. It will be a recommendation coming from the COEB, and then the President will issue an executive order, Mr. President. So yun yung final act itself. But the agency itself would have to issue the corresponding actual offices to be created or merged in line and in accordance with the EO. I-implement po ng agency yun, base sa EO.
The agency.
Siya po yung mag-i-implement nung nasa
agency
EO.
affected? The
Yes.
agency affected? Okay, so if the EO calls for the abolition of an agency, the agency will issue some something.
In compliance, Mr. President, with the executive order to be issued by the President based on the recommendation of the COEB as provided for in section 12, I believe.
Has the GCG, I'll go back to the GCG.
Yes,
Has the GCG ever abolished a GOCC?
Ano? Yes, it has, according to them, and Kedancor would be an example of such GOCC abolished by the GCG.
So, mga ilan po ang na-abolish ng GCG?
32 in all, according to them.
32? Okay, so...
Well, since we
Sabi ko
didn't hear of it being abolished, I guess it was really not needed, Mr. President, Your Honor.
Sige pa. But of course...
We'll give you the list, Mr.
So
President. Your Honor.
what do we envision here, Mr. President? Ang GCG kasi, GOCC yun. Anong na-envision natin dito? That there will be bureaus or divisions or agencies which can possibly be abolished?
Not necessarily abolished, Mr. President, Your Honor, but more, that's why ARTA is playing an important role in the COEB, Mr. President. Because this should be done hand in hand with ARTA. Ano ba talaga yung kailangan? Baka naman may mga proseso hindi na kailangan o dapat alisin. Hindi na kailangan yung opisina yun. Pero yung kapangyarihan mag-issue ng license, pwede pa rin at kailangan pa rin. Baka naman may kailangan ibang opisina, kaugnay ng IT halimbawa na kailangan i-create, kaugnay sa pag-deliver ng digital services dun sa ahensyang yon. Again, these questions would best be answered by the COEB and on the study that is being required to be conducted before the optimization can be done on any agency.
When the optimization action requires the creation of positions, hindi po ba under present law, DBM must authorize the creation of the position? So, under this bill ba, babaguhin natin yung procedure na yon?
Mr. President, it would still require DBM. In fact, DBM is part of the COEB as well. So once the COEB recommends that to the President, the creation of certain positions would carry with it already, Mr. President, the authority of the DBM as provided for in section 12 and 13 of the proposed bill. Halimbawa ngayon, Mr. President, ngayon may ginagawa po tayo sa Senado na ipepresent ako sa management at rank and file na hindi naman talaga optimization pero pagsasaayos ng mga posisyon. Dahil kung mapapansin ninyo, kada department sa Senado, minsan iba yung highest ranking salaried personnel sa department, sa bureau, sa office at sa division. Ang pinakamata sa isa hanggang LSO 3 lang, yung isa LSO 5. So magiging lateral na yung promotion niya dahil wala siyang kasunod. Kailangan pa ng permiso sa civil service dahil lalampas ng dalawa yung hahakbangan niya. So our experience with the help of NCPAG, UP NCPAG, Mr. President, Your Honor, is we actually ended up creating more positions than abolishing positions, especially given the fact that we will be transferring to our new building which carries with it more responsibilities as well. Dahil hindi na tayo lessee, possible lessor pa tayo. At mas marami na tayong kailangan gawing trabaho. So, it doesn't follow. There shouldn't be any concerns really na automatic optimization, right sizing, may tatanggalin. Hindi po.
Yes. Yung meron, sa experience po na Senado, so may proposal na magdagdag. Don't we need DBM's approval?
Yes.
Yes, we need.
Yes, and
Okay.
as soon as we do the consultation with the employees and everything is understood and explained and okay, then we will ask permission from the DBM to create those positions, although it is completely chargeable against our own funds. And we won't be asking any funds from DBM in addition to our current budget.
So that the permanent position is created.
Yes,
Tama?
Mr. President.
That's
Yes,
Pero
Mr. President.
pag naging batas na po ito, kasi ang legislature ata dito, ini-encourage din na i-adapt din yung optimization.
Yes.
Pag maging batas na po ito, mawawala ba yung step na yon that the DBM will approve the request for additional positions?
Only for those covered agencies, Mr. President, Your Honor. But for agencies that are not covered, like the Senate, it would still require
Tuloy.
DBM.
Okay, kaya nga. So,
approval.
pagdating doon sa covered, sa executive branch plus the more or less 15 GOCCs, mawawala yung step na yon?
Yes, mawawala po yun. Kasi bahagi naman na yung DBM dun sa COEB na dininig ito, kinonsidera ito. Kasama siya sa pagdebate at botohan at pagrekomenda sa Pangulo kung anong ilalagay dun sa executive order ng mga bagong posisyon na ililikha.
So pwedeng yung DBM secretary or representative sa COEB ay bumoto against the proposal but was outvoted.
That is possible, Mr. President, Your Honor. But at the end of the day, Mr. President, the executive should always get its act together. They can arrive at it via the simple order by the highest officer, by a vote, but at the end of the day, they should only have one position as the executive branch.
And this bill makes that arrangement already mandatory.
Yes, Mr. President.
Or binding, Mr. President. Okay.
Yes, Mr.
So
President.
siguro, Mr. President, one last question na lang. Can the President, through the procedure here in our bill, abolish an agency created by law?
Yes, Mr. President, because even under the authority given to the President by the Administrative Code of 1987, he can do that, Mr. President. And it has been done. I'll just get an example, Mr. President.
Because I looked at the Administrative Code, Mr. President, I did not get that impression that the President can abolish an agency created by law.
Under EO 366, Mr. President, according to our resource person, they were only able to do the activation because that was the only thing authorized under EO 366.
May we get the date of that EO, Mr. President? Baka
2004, Mr. President. Your Honor.
2004?
Under President GMA.
So is it the input from our sponsor that under that EO, an agency created by law was abolished?
I stand corrected, Mr. President, Your Honor. An agency created by law cannot be abolished. It can only be deactivated by executive fiat. A law is still necessary to abolish a government agency created by law. So the example cited earlier by Senator Villanueva, yung Optical Media Board, the executive can deactivate it, but only an act of Congress can abolish it because it was an act of Congress that created it to begin with.
What would be the practical effect of deactivation? Stop ang sweldo nila?
Hindi po. Yung
Ilipat sila?
affected employees will be transferred to other agencies.
So, optimization na rin yun. Yeah, so at present, we can actually optimize by deactivation, Mr. President. Tama?
An example, according to them, Mr. President, is the EIIB. Then, panahon ni dating Pangulong Estrada, dineactivate lang din po kasi wala pa ring batas na napapasa para i-abolish. Yung mga empleyado po nila nilipat sa ibang ahensya ng pamahalaan, DOF, BIR, at BOC.
So, it can be done and it has been done.
It has been done, Mr.
Yes.
President.
So, siguro mag-house cleaning din tayo. Hanapin natin yung mga ahensyang ganyan at let's pass the law so that formally we are ano tawag mo doon? Putting the period to that unfinished sentence, Mr. President.
That is correct, Mr. President, Your Honor. That is part of the mandate of the COEB to give the recommendations also to Congress kung ano na ba talaga yung WANA.
Pero Mr. President, medyo hindi naman dapat pala masyadong katakutan ito dahil may sunset.
Yes, Mr. President. I insisted on a sunset clause. This cannot go on forever, Mr. President. And that was accepted by the DBM.
So, ibig sabihin nito, I mean, it's an experiment. Kung it's time limited naman. So, after...
Congress can decide to extend it, but let the future Congress decide on that. For the meantime, we gave it a sunset clause.
Ilang years po?
5 years, Mr. President, Your Honor.
Okay. So yes, with that, Mr. President, mukhang sa una kasi natakot ako na baka maabuso or may ma-abolish nga na created by law, pero hindi naman pala mangyayari at saka meron tayong sunset provision. So this is parang a special power to be given the President through the Committee on Optimization and Efficiency. So, I would be willing to take the risk, Mr. President. And then, anyway, nag-focus na tayo na optimization nito. Hindi ito Hindi na, I think the word downsizing is never used in the bill.
No.
Never used.
No, Mr. President, Your Honor.
So, with that, Mr. President, I thank the sponsor and for his patience and maraming salamat po sa...
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you to our minorities.
Mr. President,
Thank you,
Mr. President, there being no member who wishes to interpolate, I move that we close the period. Mr. President, I move that we open the period of amendments and recognize the distinguished sponsor of the measure, Senator Chis
Is there any
Escudero.
objection? There being none, motion is approved.
May I propose the following amendments, Mr. President, Your Honor?
Please proceed.
On page 4, after line 28, after subsection B, add the following subsections and renumber the succeeding subsections accordingly. Quote, C. The government shall recognize the principle of equal pay for equal work, semicolon. D. The government shall respect the right to self-organization of employees in the public sector, comma, and shall encourage participation in matters affecting their rights, semicolon, close quotations. I so move, Mr. President.
Is there any objection? There being none, the amendment is approved.
May I request for 1 minute suspension, Mr.
Session
President.
suspended.
I move that we close the period of amendments. So move, Mr. President.
Is there any objection? There being none, the motion is approved.
Mr. President, at this juncture, I move that we approve on second reading Senate Bill number 890, subject to style. So move, Mr. President.
Is there any objection? There being none, the motion is approved. Senate Bill number 890 is approved on second reading, subject to style.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. We thank our distinguished Senate President for sponsoring the measure. I now move that we suspend consideration of Senate Bill number 890. So move, Mr.
Any
President.
objection? There being none, motion is approved. Majority Leader.
Mr. President, I move that we resume consideration of Senate Bill number 2573 under Committee Report number 210. This is the bill on the Cannabis Medicalization Act of the Philippines. So move, Mr. President.
Is there an objection? There being none, the motion is hereby approved.
I move to resume the period of interpellation and recognize the sponsor, Senator Robin Hood Padilla, and to interpellate our Minority Leader, Senator Aquilino Cocopimentel III.
Senators Padilla and the Minority Leader are recognized. Please proceed.
Ito, yung may mga proposed questions na po, sir. Sa dami ng mga licenses.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Ano ba to? Continuation?
Continuation kasi
So,
tanong natin, sir, yung sa PID.
I think I have already conducted my initial interpellation on this measure maybe a couple of years ago. Tama ba? Months ago. Okay, so this is just a continuation, Mr. President. Okay, klaruhin po natin. This is itong ating panukala, papayagan natin ang medical use of cannabis and extracts, cannabis extracts. Yun po.
Opo.
Hindi po natin papayagan ang recreational.
Hindi po.
Sige po.
Tayo po ay kontrang-kontra po sa recreational.
Correct po. Ngayon, yung mga medical use ng cannabis ay per scientific study, ano-ano po ang possible medical use of cannabis?
Opo. Dalawang klase po kasi, ano? Gusto ko pong maging malinaw po sa ating mga kababayan na ang cannabis po ay meron po itong dalawang masasabi po natin laman. Opo, ito po yung tinatawag natin na CBD at yung THC. Ito po. Yung CBD, marami po itong pinagagamitan. Halos sa lahat po. Basta meron kang tinatawag na pagmamaga sa katawan mo. Maging ito ay sa loob ng katawan mo o sa labas ng katawan mo, ito po ang masasabi nating gamot. Pwede mo itong ipahid, pwede mo itong ipatak. Lahat po ng maga sa katawan mo, yun po ang kanyang pwedeng pagalingin. Ano? Yun naman pong THC, ito po yung tinatawag natin na wonder. Sapagkat ito po, meron na po mga ginawang pag-aaral po dito na ito po ay ginagamit na doon po sa mga may cancer, sa mga meron pong malulubhang sakit. Ito pong paggamit ng medical cannabis, kung atin pong pag-aaralan pa, yung mga progresibong bansa po, ito po kanila na po itong talagang pinapractice. Kung pag-uusapan po kung evidence-based po, ito po talagang ginagamit na po ito sa mga cancer patients. Cannabis, kayang-kayang medicine po ito. Tapos kung ma-chemotherapy ka, po pumapasok ang patients kapag gumamit po ng... Ganon din po nung nangyari po, ano? Meron po silang nakitang isang grupo na bakit itong mga may AIDS na ito, hindi siya yun daw ng mga tinatawag po ng mga grabing sakit. Ay, eto na po talaga ang ibinibigay, yung cannabis po.
So lahat po nung ibinahagi sa atin ng ating sponsor, lahat po ba yun ay mababack upan natin ng isang study na peer-reviewed study? Yung pumasa na sa mga standards ng international level na hindi ka lang basta-basta nagpapublish, rini-review ka ng mga dalubhasa din sa parehas na topic eh. So, kaya po yon? Kaya? So, panglaban sa pamamaga, inflammation, ang medical cannabis, we can support that with a scientific study na peer-reviewed. Tama po.
Opo.
Yung benepisyo ng medical cannabis sa cancer, ano ba isa? Mga malubhang sakit.
Marami po.
Epilepsy? Pati kasama?
Epilepsy po.
Epilepsy,
Autism, dementia.
Okay, autism.
Opo, neurology, infectious diseases, neuropathic pain, gastroenterology, oncology. Ito po lahat nito, Ginoong Pangulo, ang binabanggit ko po. Alam naman po natin na ang bansang Israel at ang bansang Canada at ang bansang Amerika po, masabi ko lang di po Amerika, kahit nasa federal, hindi pa po sila approve, pero ginagamit na po nila yung medical cannabis din po. Ang hindi po kasi approve sa Amerika, yung pong sa mga state yung recreational. Pero yung medical po, yan po ay katanggap-tanggap na po yan. Lahat po yan, evidence-based na po yan, may science na po yan. Katunayan po, ito pong mga research, ito po, Cannabis for Pediatric Epilepsy, National Library of Medicine. Ito po ay yung January 2020. Ito din po yung isa, Medical Cannabis for Children, Evidence and Recommendations, Canadian Pediatric Society. Ito po. At dito din po sinabi, use of cannabis and other pain treatments among adults with chronic pain in U.S. states with medical cannabis programs. Ito din po, the health effects of cannabis and cannabinoids, National Academies of Science, Engineering and Medicine, Washington, D.C. At meron din pong Toward Medical Cannabis Education in Israel, National Institute of Health, Israel. Lahat po ito, mga aking Ginoong Pangulo, lahat po ito ay nagsagawa ng kanilang research po at studies.
So, kung meron po nakikinig sa atin ngayon na gustong ma-access yung mga studies na yan para i-check niya mismo sa sarili niya, babasahin niya, ito po ba ay hawak na ng ating committee? Kaya nilang mahingi yan sa ating committee?
Opo, Ginoong Pangulo, katunayan po, nakailang beses na po kami nag-imbita ng mga doktor po galing sa ibang bansa at meron po sila talagang mga research po, na research-based. Handa po kami na i-furnish po sila lahat niyan. Opo.
So, sa kaalaman ng ating sponsor, ilang bansa na ang pinapayagan nila ang medical use of cannabis and cannabis extracts? Mga ilang bansa na po yan?
Okay. Sa ngayon po, 70 bansa na po sa buong mundo ang nag-legal po ng ilang anyo ng cannabis, medical cannabis po. At 50 bansa naman po noong tumaas po ito. Dati po 50, naging 70 na po.
70 po? Okay, sige.
Opo.
70. Sa pagkakalam ko, more than 190 ang members ng United Nations eh.
Opo.
So kung makikita natin, minority pa rin, 70. Ano kayang alam nung 120 other nations na hindi nag-adopt ng medical cannabis?
Siguro po, Ginoong Pangulo, kulang pa din po sila sa konti pong kaalaman.
Okay.
At siguro po, hindi pa po nila narinig pa yung bagong statement po ng United Nation po na iniiba po yung schedule po ng cannabis. Opo, dati po kasi talagang ito po ay sinasabi nilang bawal. Pero ngayon po sinabi nila bawal pa rin, pero meron po itong medicinal component na pwede po nilang pag-aralan pa. Kaya meron pong approved po ngayon eh. May approved po na dami nung tinatawag po na THC at nung CBD.
Sige po. Ano naman po ang danger nito? Kunyari, meron
Na
ba
overdose po,
meron bang kaso na posible bang overdose dito?
Ang pinaka-overdose po ng cannabis, matutulog po sa kakain. Yun lamang po, wala pa pong naitala, wala pa pong naisulat na meron pong namatay po sa cannabis. Sa loob po ng 1,000 taon na ito po ay ginagamit na. Magmula pa po sa panahon po ng Egyptian, sa lahat pa po, ano? Wala pa pong na-record po na namatay po sa cannabis.
Pero meron po ako napanood na medyo parang documentary din siya na accidentally yung anak na babae, dalagita pa, kumain ng parang candy, gummy candies, pero may cannabis pala. Sa US ito. At siyempre, tirinato niyang candy yun, so naparami ang kain niya. Kinailangan siyang itakbo sa ospital eh. So I think the overdose is more than just getting sleepy and having a good appetite. Meron din pong naging emergency case din po siya eh.
Siguro po, dala po ng panic. Siguro po, nagpanic po siya.
Hindi po nag-collapse yung ang anak nila, nag-collapse. Nakita nila na andyan na lang sa
Pero nabuhay
sa
po.
floor.
Nabuhay.
Opo. Pero it was still an emergency. So, posibleng siya ang nauna na documented case na namatay.
Pero
Hindi po namatay dun sa napanood ko.
Wala po kasi Ginoong Pangulo na recorded po talaga na after po magkaroon ng ganong klaseng overdose, kasi hindi po talaga may iwasan na pagka nasobrahan po, talagang matutulog po talaga, babagsak po talaga. No? Pero hindi po talaga mamamatay. Wala pong magiging epekto sa puso niya, kahit po sa utak niya. Basta pagising lang po, maghahanap lang po ng pagkain yun, sigurado po.
Yan po ba ang ating pinag-uusapan on the ano matawag mo dyan? Dangerous? On the dangerous side effects of overdosing on medical cannabis or adverse effects, cannabis, cannabinoids. Walang hindi tumataas ang kanilang BP or heart rate to such dangerous levels, Mr. President?
Wala naman pong sa dangerous level. Wala pa po akong nakita talaga na nagkaroon pong ganun. Ano? Pero marami po talaga yung automatic nagpapanik. Siyempre po, medyo iba sa kanila. Opo, marami pong ganyan. Marami pong mga video, marami pong mga pag-aaral na ganyan. Sa Prague nga po, may mga isinagawa po sila no, na mga ganyang pag-aaral. Ganun din po sa Israel. Kaya po meron pong mga medicinal cannabis po ngayon na tinatanggal po yung panic. Tinatanggal po yung, minsan, meron po dyan, yung anxious ka, yung mga paranoia. Meron po sila ngayon na tinatanggal na po nila yung mga effects na yun. Pati nga po yung namumula yung mata. Kaya po, Ginoong Pangulo, pag kinumpare po natin ang cannabis, yung medical cannabis, doon po sa recreational marijuana, malayo po talaga. Napakalayo po. Kasi yung pong medical cannabis, naaalis na po nila kahit yung pamumulan ng mata. Ano na po yan? Nandun na po sa development na yan. Pero yung recreational marijuana po, talagang marumi yan. Hindi po talaga...
Wala sa usapan yan. Wala dito sa bill natin.
Opo.
Tapos ang medical use lang tayo ng cannabis and cannabis extracts, and these are prescription-based drugs or medicines.
Okay.
So hindi pa rin siya over the counter, basta kailangan doktor pa rin ang magbigay ng prescription o magrekomenda ng
po,
gamot.
dapat po, Ginoong Pangulo, yung pong doktor, nakapag-aral po siya ng patungkol po sa cannabis. Opo, hindi po basta doktor lang. Kailangan
Nasa bill natin yun.
Opo, nasa
Okay.
bill po natin.
Saan mag-aaral si doktor para makakuha ng additional knowledge or experience?
Katulad po nitong huli, nagpadala po kami ng doktor dito na galing po sa Amerika. Siya po ay si Shiksha Gallo. Nagsagawa po siya dito ng seminar. Siya po ay clinical pathologist at siya din po ang maraming clinical and scientific studies na ginawa po sa Amerika.
Hindi, so kung maging batas ito,
Magpapapunta po tayo. Opo. Ng mga
anong body yung mag-organize ng mga fora na ganyan?
Opo, yung pong ating bill nandoon po no.
Ilan ba?
Opo sa section 29. Okay, ano na nga?
Section 29.
29. Opo. Ito po, basahin ko po, Ginoong Pangulo. Section 29, Training of Medical Cannabis Physicians, Pharmacists, and other allied medical and healthcare professionals. The PMCA, the Philippine Medical Cannabis Authority, shall develop an appropriate training program for physicians, pharmacists, and other allied medical and healthcare professionals on the following topics: D, pharmacology of cannabis, contraindications, side effects, adverse reactions, overdose prevention, drug interaction, dosing, routes of administration, risk and benefits, warnings and precautions, abuse and dependence, and other related topics. Completion of the program shall be precondition for the physician, pharmacists, and other allied medical and healthcare professionals as may be licensed to prescribe, dispense, and administer medical cannabis to qualified patients.
Yes, meron pala.
Who filed and endorsed this complaint, no? We also have the list of prosecutors as approved by the plenary. Makapal eh. Hindi kasi makapal doon yung annexes. Halika, pakita natin yung isang complaint. Ito yung isang kopya ng complaint.
Dito sir, dito sa camera sir. Yan, dito. Yan sir.
Yeah, kasi marami yung annexes eh.
Dinidiretso nyo kanina, sir? Kanina nyo pa ipapatid?
Kay yung counterpart ko, si Secretary Bantug is ito po yung mga signatories. Kasama rin po yan, ano? 215 of them.
So basically, kaninang umaga lang section na buo yung 215, ano?
Opo. So yan po, 215. Well, depende na po sa Senado yun. We will respect whatever decision they have. Pero yun po, it's their constitutional duty to act on this impeachment complaint. Yes.
Pero sir, may ikaw possibility na sa June pa nila ma-actionan dahil dito yung...
Pwede rin po, pwede naman sila mag-convene ng court even during the break, no? Because this is a non-legislative function of the Senate. Wala po yata. Hindi ko sure po. Hindi ko sure.
Umaga pa lang nakipag-coordinate na kayo sa Senado on the possible transmittal. Does that mean kaninang umaga pa lang, sir? May 100 plus na po.
Hindi, kaninang after lunch ko tinawagan yung counterpart ko when we're sure na makukuha na yung numbers.
During that time,
tinawag ninyo, sir? Pasensya na po.
Na dadaling ko na yung impeachment complaint endorsed by at least 1/3, no? Ngayon po, more than 1/3. This is about 70% po of the House members
of 306 members. 215 po yung pumirma at sila po na rin acted as complainant dito sa complaint.
So, nung itinawag po ninyo kaninang tanghali kay Attorney Bantug, Senator
Opo,
Secretary,
na
ilan po yung pirma nun kaninang tanghali?
Na po, lagpas 102 na. Yung
Kaya
ganun.
po certain kayo na dadalhin dito?
Yes po. Nung lumagpas na po ng 102, we were certain na we can now enforce the impeachment complaint kasi beyond 1/3 na yung boto.
Pwede po pa-explain lang, sir, ano po pakilaraman ko, ano po yung dala ninyo ngayon dito?
Sir, sa camera, sir. Sa camera lang, sir. Sa camera lang, sir.
Describe lang po sa amin, ano yung...
Hindi na po. Nasa Senate na po yun. At magpe-press release naman po yun. Magsasalita naman po yung mga House members tungkol dito sa complaint.
Pero
sa
makapal na
next.
mga dokumento po yung nakikita namin.
Opo.
Sir, if ever makonvene po agad yung impeachment, ready na po yung kasama ng
Opo, pinorm na po kanina. Kasama po sa transmission namin yung name of the prosecutors, 11 prosecutors po, who are all members of the House. Opo? Pwede pong may private, like in the previous impeachment trials po. Okay? Sige po. Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Secretary General, sir, ali kayo.
Sorry, inaran
Hindi, okay lang, of course. Ali kayo. Thank you, gentlemen, ladies. Thank you po. Salamat po. Salamat po.
Tabi.
It's okay.
Sumulog daw to. Sir, thank you. Ati lang si tayo. Ati lang si ako.
Hi, Mami Glenn.
Hi, ma'am.
Love you, Papa.
Dito sumulong. Tumulong. Dito tayo, tumulong. Tumulong tayo.
May oxygen sa likod, may oxygen sa likod.
Tumulong tayo. Dinidiretso na to, naka-live. Dinidiretso. Sige, sorry.
bake shop dyan na may...
Ay, bawal po, bawal po,
Yes, na
bawal
may-
po,
Bawal po. Yung
bawal.
recreational
Hindi
po. Kahit hindi siya sinisigarilyo, hindi siya ini-smoke, bawal. Yung kasi recreational yun. Okay.
Opo, opo.
At saka ito po medical cannabis, yung final product ay dapat FDA approved pa rin. Okay, okay po. Pasaklaro po lahat yun.
Opo.
Ang problema po, meron din po kami na research kasi na mga adverse side effects or mga dapat katakutan din natin na mga long-term effect na hindi ba to, kasi yung binanggit po nating sponsor na tinutulungan nila sa Prague yung mga na-addict sa marijuana, so therefore addictive siya.
Hindi po.
Hindi ba? So hindi ba nakakatakot yun?
Ginagamit po siya to cure. Kasi halimbawa po, hindi lang po sa na-addict po, kung saan po na-addict, halimbawa na-addict po sa opium o sa mga sa opioid, sa alcohol, ay ito na po talaga yung kanilang pang-treatment.
Okay, treatment,
Opo,
to
pang-treatment.
treatment to
Kasi wala po siyang
to stop
Wala
or
po
cure
siyang-
the addiction, the so-called.
Opo, wala
But
po.
was there also an addiction to marijuana use?
Wala po akong sa akin pong sa akin pong matagal na pag-aaral ng patungkol sa cannabis. Wala pa po akong nakilala na masasabing naging addict sa cannabis. Sa alak po, marami akong nakita.
Ang meaning ng addict talagang yung
Talamak
hindi
po,
na niya makontrol yung desire niya o nanginginig na siya, hindi na siya makafunction ng normal dahil kailangan niyang
niya yun.
makakonsumo.
Opo,
So,
opo. Wala po
kayong na-meet.
Ay, wala pa po ako.
Or lahat ng na-meet yung nag-invoke ng right against self-incrimination. Ayun ba?
Hindi po, karamihan po. Hindi naman po, Ginoong Pangulo, kahit po sa mga rehab po, kahit po sa mga rehabilitation center, hindi po kailanman naging issue ang marijuana. Ang laging issue is shabu, alak eh.
Sige.
Opo.
Sige po, posible din ba, meron kasing may nagsasabi pwede rin dahil sa long-term use,
Nakadukduk mo kanina. Isusip na alam yung pangalan ng dukduk ng dukduk.
Chief of Staff of nag-work siya dito. Chief of Staff Washington DC. Kaya ako, that's one of the reasons why nilagay ko speaker for servant for her father. Yeah. Marami rin mga last minute. Pero ito, inuna sa calendar of business. The goal is to have it transmitted. This was the first agenda of the business of the tapos yung 11 prosecutors. No, abogado lang. Then is Ministro ako. Oh, Marmoy, mayroon bang kopya ng yung sa prosecutors? Dalawa yung transmit namin. The complaint itself. And then the prosecutors. Yan na, paparesin niya. Kaso ka na niya lang na-receive. Pwede mo nang tatangan. Di ba? Tayo natin si Jen. Hindi, pwede mo na yung mga pagtatakot. Kasi tinitingnan parang appointment ng Secretary Council. Bali, yan yung prosecutor. Puro lawyers yan. So, si Jill, tumatak mo yung congressman na State Counsel. Diba na, used to be with the Impeachment. Yes. Hindi, anak yan, si Ronnie. Si Ronnie. Yes. Tapos ito, si Lawrence. Famous defensor. Unahin natin. Yun. For the photo of, turn over ko yung kapal. Sorry, dalawa. Tapos, tatatakan na lang natin. Second, itong list of prosecutors. So this one, first, complain. Tapos, lahat yan. Yan sir. Sinasabi ko lang, I'm waiting for the fourth complaint. The fourth complaint, you're the fourth complaint, sabi ko kasi, under our, even our schedule, session, that's plenary, Committee on Justice, 60 session. Practically one year. Kasi sinususpend lang natin. 3 days a week. Hindi. Actually kami, sinususpend lang. So 1 session day per week, per 3 session. Technically, if you move to the next, that session is suspend. Not yet over. Pero pag in-adjourn namin, yun, 1 session day na yun. Pero kami, ang pagbilang namin, pag suspended, kadugtong pa yung session. Sabihin mo justice sa 60 session days. Tapos, under the rules? Yes. Yes. Tapos, Committee on Justice will have to invite the respondent. They'll be given 10 days minimum, and then they may ask for extension. We need an additional 10 more days. Tapos, magbe-break pag-aaralan yung mga submission. Calendar. Sabihin mo lang straight to kayo na 3 a day. 3 a week. That's 12 months. Yeah. So at least 5 months. Hindi pa. Abot na tayo yung budget. Tapos, pwede pong ma-extend yun. Pagka hindi pa tapos, wala pang decision ng committee. What can you do? If the committee has not done, wala pang decision. They can delay the procedure. Tapos yung respondent can go to the Supreme Court and question the procedures. Hindi mo papadala sa kanila. Hindi mo kasama. Hindi ko pa alam sila kung hindi, sa prosecution, they will be the ones who decide which You'll give us a room.
But I suppose the secretary.
Yeah, depending, sir, kung
contingent
at anong contingent na.
Attorney Alonso is saying baka mapadalas kayo dito.
Oh, well, in the past,
I remember
yes.
us telling them.
Yung tatay niya pala, prosecutor eh.
Nag-set up, nung
Sa second floor, yeah, di ba? Nandito ka naman.
Yes. Yes.
High school ka pa lang.
Oo nga, high school ako. Observer.
Sabi ko, ako nandito sa may Estrada ka.
Famous.
Oh.
Nakalive daw kayo GMA.
Oh, usapan, walang live. Ha? Pero di ba, gentleman's agreement, no live. Saka huwag niyo kunan. Napaka-ano. Ha? Please, no live, ha? Can we have a gentleman's agreement with that? At saka puro yun. Hintayin na lang natin sa secretary. That's the official.
Different legal groups in the House lang. The Senate na.
No, they're representatives. Live na. Hindi po.
From our Congress.
Yes, from your Congress and from and then I think somewhere they requested permission from the Senate.
There are some areas there.
Enforcement ditong nandito sa mga
Opo.
safeguards po natin eh. So
Ako po naglagay.
kung wala tayong tiwala dun sa safeguard na yun sa farming, sa planting, bakit tayo magtitiwala ngayon na the other safeguards against abuse will work?
Opo.
So it's either we trust that our safeguards will work or do not trust that they will not work, di ba? So yun lang po yun, napansin ko po yun. Kasi pati farmers natin, i-deprive natin sa isang legal activity or legal economic activity. So yun lang po yun. Kung pwedeng mabalikan lang po ng ating ano.
Ginoong Pangulo, mabanggit ko lang po, meron din po akong, ano na ba yung bill?
Ayusin na lang nila to.
Meron din po tayong, Ginoong Pangulo, meron po tayong bill din po dyan na hindi pa po natin, pero tungkol din po ito sa cannabis. Pero ito naman po yung tinatawag nating industrial hemp. Ito po yung pwedeng puntahan ng ating mga magsasaka. Pero another na lang po, another discussion po yun. Pagka yung bill na po na yun ang pinag-usapan natin. Opo. Iba po kasi yung industrial cannabis, tsaka po yung medical cannabis.
Okay.
Opo.
So what is industrial cannabis?
Ito po yung mga ginagamit po sa damit.
Iba po yun. Iba po yun.
Opo.
Ang aking pong point, ulitin ko, na kung ikaw ay magtatanim ng isang plant, isang tanim para supplyan ng isang legal na industry, bakit bawal?
Opo, wala po.
Ayun po. Pero yun po, tama po ba ako na napansin ko na sa ngayon, sa pagkasulat, bawal?
Opo, 6 months po na wala muna pong...
For 6 months lang
months
from the
po,
effectivity of this act.
Opo.
For 6 months. I-review na lang po namin because we did not get that impression na temporary lang pala.
Sa Section 15 po, Ginoong Pangulo. Section 15. Nandun
Sige.
po.
All the more that we can dispense with it kung temporary lang din pala, Mr. President. Sige po. Thank you. Thank you to our sponsor.
Thank you, distinguished minority of Florida. Thank you, Senator Padilla. Majority Leader.
Maraming salamat po.
Mr. President, I move that we suspend consideration of Senate Bill number 2573.
Any objection? Hearing none. Motion is approved. Majority Leader.
Mr. President, we are in the receipt of the Conference Committee report on the disagreeing provisions of Senate Bill number 2865 and House Bill 9277, the bills on the Capital Markets Efficiency Promotions Act. With that, I move to recognize the chairperson of the Senate panel, Senator Win Gatchalian, to give us the highlights of the Conference Committee report. So move, Mr.
Senator
President.
Gatchalian is so recognized. You may proceed, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Majority Leader. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, as the lead conferee of the Senate panel, I have the honor of submitting for ratification a copy of the Bicameral Conference Committee report on the disagreeing provisions on Senate Bill number 2865 and House Bill number 9277, otherwise known as the Capital Markets Efficiency Promotions Act. The Senate and the House panels have met and discussed every possible way to work out a reconciled version of our respective bills. We have come up with a piece of legislation that seeks to promote capital market development, increase capital mobility, and enhance capital inclusion. Enhance financial inclusion. Under this proposed measure, we are making significant strides in enhancing the accessibility and efficiency of our capital markets. To lower costs of investing and encourage broader participation, we are reducing stock transaction tax from 0.6% to 0.1%, making stock trading more attractive and competitive. We are also reducing the documentary stamp tax on original issue of shares of stock from 1% to 0.75% of the par value of the shares of stock, further easing the financial burden on investors. Additionally, we are exempting DST on original issuance, redemption, or other disposition of shares or units of participation in a mutual fund company, as well as the issuance of certificate or other evidence of participation in a unit investment trust fund. To expand financial inclusion, this measure codifies the exclusion from gross income of gains from redemption of units of participation in a unit investment trust fund, ensuring that small investors can maximize their earnings without unnecessary tax burdens. Additionally, we are introducing an additional allowable deduction of 50% of the employer's actual contribution to their employees' personal equity and retirement accounts, incentivizing businesses to help Filipinos prepare for a secure retirement. Finally, this bill codifies the timing of recognition of equity-based compensation as compensation income, clarifying that taxation occurs at the time of exercise. As we introduce the Capital Markets Efficiency Promotions Act, we are not just making investments more affordable, we are breaking down long-standing barriers and opening doors for every Filipino to take charge of their financial future. A more efficient capital market means more opportunities, greater financial inclusion, and stronger economy that works for all. Finally, I extend my gratitude to Senator Joel Villanueva as a co-author of this measure. His unwavering dedication and advocacy for this legislation were the driving forces that brought us to this pivotal moment. To my fellow conferees, Senate Minority Leader Senator Coco Pimentel, Senator Pia Cayetano, Senator Jay Versito, and Senator Joel Villanueva, thank you for your invaluable contributions during the bicameral conference meetings as we resolve several issues. Mr. President, the comprehensive details of the disagreeing provisions are reflected in the joint explanatory statement. With the permission of the body, I move that the said joint explanatory statement on the disagreeing provisions of Senate Bill number 2865 and House Bill number 9277 be read in toto into the record, and that the bicameral conference committee report be ratified. Mr. President, before I end, let me just report to the body and of course to our Senate President that this 19th Congress has enacted 7 tax measures that will generate new taxes and new revenue for government in an amount of 200 billion pesos, Mr. President, in a span of 5 years. So I'm happy to report that your Senate has been producing bills to help government increase fiscal space and therefore reduce fiscal deficit. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, colleagues.
Congratulations to Senator Gatchalian as well. Is there any objection to the motion of the distinguished sponsor? Hearing none, the Conference Committee report on the disagreeing provisions of Senate Bill number 2865 and House Bill number 9277 is hereby approved and ratified. Congratulations once more. Majority Floor Leader.
Yes, Mr. President, just for the information of the body, we received information that the House of Representatives adopted the Senate version of Senate Bill number 2838 or the Magna Carta of the Barangay Health Workers. We thank our colleagues in the House of Representatives for this. Of course, we thank our colleagues as well in the Senate. Para sa ating mga OHW, konting tulog na lang po, magiging batas na po ito.
Congratulations as well, Senator J.V. Herzog, the principal author and sponsor of the measure. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. President, I move that we proceed to the additional reference of business.
Reference of business. Secretary General is directed to comply.
Messages from the House. Letter from the House informing the Senate that on 3 February 2025, it passed the following House bills, in which it requests the concurrence of the Senate. House number 11340, creating 3 additional branches of the RTC in the 4th Judicial Region to be stationed in the city of General Trias, Cavite. Appropriating funds, therefore, amending Section 14E of BP 129. 11349, creating 1 additional branch of the RTC, 10th Judicial Region, Municipality of Quezon, Province of Bukidnon. Appropriating funds, therefore. 11350, creating 2 additional branches of the RTC in the 10th Judicial Region, City of Butuan, Province of Agusan del Norte. Appropriating funds, therefore. 11352, creating 2 additional branches of the RTC in the National Capital Judicial Region to be stationed in Valenzuela, and appropriating funds, therefore.
To the Committees on Justice, Human Rights, and Finance.
11357, strengthening the Philippine healthcare system to achieve efficiency and equity and to improve public health emergency preparedness, amending for the purpose Republic Act number 11223, otherwise known as the Universal Healthcare Act.
The Committee on Rules.
10902, declaring the 7th day of November of every year a special national working holiday in commemoration of the establishment of the first Philippine mosque and the introduction of Islam in the Philippines.
The Committee on Rules.
11204, strengthening the Legal Education Board, amending for the purpose Republic Act number 7662, otherwise known as the Legal Education Reform Act of 1993, and appropriating funds, therefore.
The Committees on Higher and Technical Vocational Education, Justice and Human Rights, Ways and Means, and Finance.
11229, allowing the internment of Filipino sports heroes at the libingan ng mga bayani.
The Committee on Sports.
11286, strengthening the administration of excise tax on tobacco products, cigars, cigarettes, heated tobacco products, vapor products, and novel tobacco products, amending for the purpose of the National Internal Revenue Code of 1997 as amended.
Committee on Ways and Means.
11317, providing an additional ground for canceling the certificate of candidacy of a candidate and making the acts of a nuisance candidate an election offense. Amending Section 69, 261CC, and 264, Batas Pambansa Bilang 881 as amended, otherwise known as the Omnibus Election Code of the Philippines.
The Committee on Electoral Reforms and People's Participation.
11337, an act providing for the rights of informal ambulant vendors.
The Committees on Social Justice, Welfare and Rural Development, and Local Government.
House number 11341, an act strengthening the Polytechnic University of the Philippines, declaring it as a National Polytechnic University and appropriating funds therefore.
The Committee on Rules.
11355, an act enhancing animal industry development and competitiveness, strengthening the Bureau of Animal Industry and creating for the purpose an Animal Competitiveness Enhancement Fund.
To the Committee on Agriculture, Food and Agrarian Reform, Ways and Means, and Finance. 11358,
an act providing for a comprehensive fiscal autonomy for the Judiciary, creating for the purpose the Judiciary Trust Fund.
The Committees on Justice and Human Rights and Finance.
11360, amending sections 144, 145, 147, 263A, and 289 of the National Internal Revenue Code of 1997 as amended and for other purposes.
The Committee on Ways and Means.
4921, reclassifying as agricultural land a parcel of land of the public domain located in Mangabul Reservation in Municipality of Bayambang, Province of Pangasinan, for the purpose of distributing the same to long-term farmers and occupants thereof.
To the Committees on Environment, Natural Resources and Climate Change, Agriculture, Food and Agrarian Reform.
House number 4922, reclassifying as agricultural land a parcel of land of the public domain situated at Lourdes, Alubid, Province of Misamis Oriental, to be utilized as a site of the Science and Technology part of the University of Science and Technology of Southern Philippines. 5143, reclassifying as agricultural land a parcel of land of the public domain located in the Dinalupihan and Hermosa, Province of Bataan, as agricultural land open to disposition. 5150, reclassifying a parcel of land of the public domain located in the city of Ozamis, Province of Misamis Occidental, as agricultural land and open to disposition. House number 5306, reclassifying a parcel of land of the public domain located in Don Victoriano, Province of Misamis Occidental, as agricultural land and open to disposition. 9549, reclassifying as agricultural land a parcel of land of the public domain situated at the city of Lamitan, Province of Basilan, Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao, to be reserved for the exclusive use of the provincial government of Basilan as the sites of its government, center, and housing projects.
To the Committee on Environment, Natural Resources and Climate Change.
House number 9610, declaring as agricultural land parcels of land of the public domain in the city of Naga, Province of Cebu, and open to disposition for agricultural residential, commercial, industrial, or other productive purposes. 11032, declaring a parcel of land in the public domain, City of Cagayan de Oro as agricultural land and open to disposition for agricultural, commercial, residential, industrial, and other purposes. House number 11316, declaring a parcel of land in the public domain located in Barangay Itbud, Municipality of Uyugan, Province of Batanes, as agricultural land and open to disposition for agricultural, commercial, residential, and other productive purposes.
The Committee on Environment, Natural Resources, and Climate Change.
House number 8800, converting the municipality of Claver in the province of Surigao del Norte into a component city to be known as the City of Claver.
To the Committees on Local Government, Electoral Reforms, and People's Participation.
10216, creating the municipality of Don Mariano Peralta, province of Davao Occidental. House number 10217, anak merging barangays 9, 10, 11, 16, 18, 25, and 28 in Ormoc, province of Leyte, and constituting them into a distinct and independent barangay to be known as Barangay East. 10218, merging barangays 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 12, 13, 15, 17, 23, and 27 in the city of Ormoc, Leyte, and constituting them into a distinct and independent barangay to be known as Barangay South. 10219, merging barangays 14, 19, 20, 21, 22, 24, and 26, City of Ormoc, province of Leyte, and constituting them into a distinct and independent barangay to be known as Barangay West. 10221, creating a barangay to be known as Barangay Pag-asa, Municipality of Calamansig, Sultan Kudarat. 10222, creating a barangay to be known as Barangay Tigpalas, Municipality of San Miguel, Province of Bulacan. 10223, separating the city of New Canaan from Barangay Pag-asa in Alabel, Sarangani, and constituting it into a distinct and independent barangay to be known as Barangay Canaan.
To the Committees on Local Government, Electoral Reforms, and People's Participation and Finance.
11299, recognizing Singapore School Cebu as an educational institution of international character, granting certain prerogatives conducive to its development and growth. 11300, reorganizing Singapore School Clark as an educational institution of international character, granting certain prerogatives conducive
These are
to its
omnibus bills. Just mention the number, please. These are the same.
House number 11300, House number 11301, and House number 11302.
To the Committees on Basic Education, Ways and Means.
11351, converting the Patag Elementary School in Patag Municipality of Erosin, Province of Sorsogon, into an integrated school to be known as the Patag Integrated School, appropriating funds therefore.
The Committees on Basic Education and Finance.
11326, converting the Samar National School of Arts and Trade in Taft, Province of Eastern Samar, into a polytechnic institution to be administered and supervised by the Technical Education and Skills Development Authority, appropriating funds therefore.
The Committees on Higher Technical and Vocational Education and Finance. 11342,
establishing a College of Medicine in the Eastern Samar State University in the city of Borongan, Province of Eastern Samar, appropriating funds therefore. 11343, strengthening the Mindanao State University system, appropriating funds therefore. 11344, converting the Davao del Norte State College in Panabo into a state university. 11346, establishing a College of Medicine in Mindanao State University, General Santos City, in General Santos City, Province of South Cotabato. 11347, establishing a College of Medicine, the Polytechnic University of the Philippines, Quezon City Campus, and appropriating funds therefore. And House number 11348, establishing a College of Medicine in Northeastern Mindanao State University Main Campus in Tandag, Surigao del Sur, appropriating funds therefore.
To the Committees on Higher Technical Vocational Education, Ways and Means, and Finance.
11327, renaming the Abra de Ilog Municipal Hospital in Abra de Ilog, Occidental Mindoro to Abra de Ilog Community Hospital. And House number 11328, renaming the Far North General Hospital and Training Center in Luna, Apayao to Elias K. Bulot Senior General Hospital and Medical Center.
To the Committee on Health and Demography.
Letter from the House informing the Senate that on 3 February 2025, it designated Representatives Go, Gonzales Jr., and Magsino as conferees of the Conference Committee on the disagreeing votes on House number 9989, strengthening the Don Honorio Ventura State University by renaming it as the Pampanga State University, expanding its curricular offerings and the composition of the governing board, appropriating funds therefore.
The Committee on Rules.
Letter from the House informing the Senate that on 3 February 2025, it designated Representatives Gato Jr., Kimbo, Asidre, Vergara, Garin, Tan, and Libanan As conferees of the Conference Committee on the Disagreeing Provisions of House Number 6772, granting the President of the Philippines the power to suspend and adjust the period of implementation of the scheduled increase of premium rates for direct contributors of the Philippine Health Insurance Corporation, amending for the purpose RA 11223 and House Number 11357, strengthening the Philippine healthcare system to achieve efficiency and equity, and to improve public health emergency preparedness, amending Republic Act Number 11223, the Universal Healthcare Act, and Senate Number 2620, amending Republic Act Number 11223, otherwise known as the Universal Healthcare Act.
The Committee on Rules.
Letter from the House informing the Senate that on 3 February 2025, designated Representatives Gato Jr., Marquez, Salceda, Miguel, Garin, Asidre, and Libanan as conference of the Conference Committee on the Disagreeing Provisions of House Number 6452, establishing the Virology and Vaccine Institute of the Philippines, and Senate Number 2893, establishing a collaborative and complementary research and development system in virology, creating for the purpose the Virology Institute of the Philippines, appropriating funds therefore.
The Committee on Rules.
Letter from the House informing the Senate that on 3 February 2025, designated Representatives Teng, Salceda, Dionisio Jr., Zamora, and Daza as conferees of the Conference Committee on the Disagreeing Provisions of House Number 11230, providing for a new charter of the DBP, repealing for the purpose EO 81, otherwise known as the revised charter of the DBP, and Senate Number 2804, providing for a new charter of the Development Bank of the Philippines, for the purpose EO 81 as amended.
To the Archives.
Letter from the House informing the Senate that on 3 February 2025, it designated Representatives Arenas, Sanhuatco III, Alba, Vergara, Arbison Jr., Acheron, and Libanan as conferees of the Conference Committee on the Disagreeing Provisions of House Number 10466, adjusting the monthly pension benefits of retirees of the DFA, and Senate Number 2863, providing for a pension differential to the Department of Foreign Affairs retirees.
To the Archives.
Letter from the House informing the Senate that on 3 February 2025, we designated Representatives Dalog Jr., Addiong, Arbison Jr., Balindong, and Hataman as conference of the Conference Committee on the Disagreeing Provisions of House Number 11144, reciting the first regular elections in the Bangsamoro region in Muslim Mindanao, amending for the purpose Section 13, Article 16 of RA 11054, and Senate Number 2942, reciting the first regular elections in the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao, amending for the purpose Article 16, Section 13 of RA 11054, otherwise known as the Organic Law of the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao, as amended.
To the Archives, Secretary is directed to proceed to the additional reference of business.
Additional reference of business, bills on first reading, Senate Number 2983, an act mandating the issuance of Philippine Health Card to all Filipinos, appropriating funds therefore. Senator Go.
The Committee on Health and Demography.
Senate Number 2984, discontinuing the use of the spiral progression approach in the basic education curriculum, deleting for the purpose Section 5, Paragraph G of Republic Act Number 10533, otherwise known as the Enhanced Basic Education Act of 2013, Senator Gatchalian.
The Committee on Basic Education.
Resolutions. Proposed Senate Resolution 1308, directing the Senate Committee on Energy to investigate price-setting practices of the Manila Electric Company, as well as the rate-setting and other regulatory mechanisms of the Energy Regulatory Commission, Senator Ontiveros.
The Committee on Energy.
1309, directing the Committee on Health and Demography to conduct a thorough review and evaluation and implementation of RA 11223, otherwise known as the Universal Healthcare Act, Senator Ejercito.
The Committee on Health and Demography.
1310, directing the Senate Committee on Accountability of Public Officers and Investigations to conduct an inquiry on the substantial number of inactive, non-operational, invalid, or unused exploration permits and mineral agreements contrary to the declared policy of RA 7942, the Philippine Mining Act of 1995, Senator Escudero.
To the Committee on Environment, Natural Resources, and Climate Change.
Committee Report 528, jointly by the Committees on Trade, Commerce, and Entrepreneurship, Economic Affairs, and Finance, on Senate Number 2985, with Senators Pimentel III, Villar M., Revilla Jr., Villanueva, Villar C., and Cayetano AP, an act promoting entrepreneurship by institutionalizing a financing program for micro and small enterprises through the Pondo sa Pagbabago at Pag-asenso program, appropriating funds therefore, recommending approval in substitution of Senate Number 75, 1247, 2357, and 2404, taking into consideration House Number 7363, sponsor Senator Cayetano AP.
To the calendar for ordinary business.
529, jointly by the Committees on Trade, Commerce, and Entrepreneurship and Health and Demography, on Senate Number 2986, with Senators Gatchalian, Revilla Jr., Marcos, Go, and Cayetano AP, an act granting enhanced protection to consumers, amending for the purpose Republic Act Number 7394, or the Consumer Act of the Philippines as amended, recommending approval in substitution of Senate Numbers 942, 1106, 1302, 1369, and 1785, sponsor Senator Cayetano AP. AP.
To the calendar for ordinary business. Secretary may proceed to the second additional reference of business.
Messages from the House. Letters from the House of Representatives informing the Senate that on 14, 15, 21, 22, 28 January, and February 3, 2025, it adopted the following Senate bill. Senate number 2871 as an amendment to House number 9571. Senate number 2799 as an amendment to House number 7752. Senate number 2797 as an amendment to House number 10634. Senate number 2252 as an amendment to House number 7479. Senate number 355 as an amendment to House number 7322. Senate number 2616 as an amendment to House number 8202. Senate number 2615 as an amendment to House number 8394. Senate number 2614 as an amendment to House number 8441. Senate number 2619 as an amendment to House number 8504. Senate number 2618 as an amendment to House number 8395. Senate number 1691 as an amendment to House number 7506. Senate number 1725 as an amendment to House number 7529. Senate number 2814 as an amendment to House number 6509. Senate number 2818 as an amendment to House number 10172. Senate number 2906 as an amendment to House number 11186. And Senate number 2900 as an amendment to House number 7764.
To the archives.
Letters from the House informing the Senate that on 21, 28 January, and 3 February 2025, it concurred with the Senate amendments to the following House bills. House number 7406, House number 5827, House number 3401, House number 4275, House number 5659, House number 5731, House number 6556, House number 8283, House number 8284, House number 9047, House number 9650, House number 9651, House number 9652, House number 9653, House number 9654, House number 9655, House number 9664, House number 9757, House number 10671, House number 10773, House number 10774, House number 10775, House number 10776, House number 10777, House number 10778, House number 10779, House number 10780, House number 10781, House number 1082, House number 1084, House number 1085, House number 10837, House number 10838, House number 10839, House number 5850, House number 5851, House number 6158, House number 8214, House number 428.
To the archives. Majority Floor Leader. Senate Secretary will proceed.
Letter from the House of Representatives informing the Senate that on 27 January 2025, it ratified the Conference Committee report on the disagreeing provisions of House number 11199, an act reorganizing the National Economic and Development Authority into the Department of Economy, Planning and Development, and constituting the NEDA Board into the Economic Development Council, repealing for the purpose EO 230 series of 87 and amending EO 292 series of 87, appropriating funds therefore. And Senate number 2878, reorganizing the National Economic and Development Authority into the Department of Economy, Planning and Development, and reconstituting the NEDA Board into the Economy and Development Council, repealing for the purpose EO 230 series of 87, amending EO 292 series of 87, appropriating funds therefore.
To the archives. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. President, I move that we resume consideration of Senate Bill number 2982 under Committee Report number 527. This is the bill on the Fiscal Autonomy Act of the Judicial Branch of Government. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, consideration of the aforementioned measure is now in order.
Having sponsored the measure, I move to open the period of interpellation and recognize the sponsor, our Minority Leader, Senator Aquilino Cocomitel III.
The Minority Leader is recognized.
May we know from the Majority Leader if there is a colleague of ours who who listed as interested in interpolating, Mr. President.
Mr. President, there being no other reservation for interpellation, I move to close the period of interpellation. The majority leader will not interpellate anymore.
Any
Mr. President.
objection? Hearing none, motion is approved. Period of amendment is now open. If there are any amendments, Minority Leader.
Well, I just want to state, Mr. President, that during the sponsorship speech, we really tried our best to divulge everything about the bill, Mr. President. Nandun naman, it's a short bill, just 4 pages. So, no amendments, Mr. President.
There being no amendments, Majority Floor Leader.
With no amendment, I move to close the period of amendments.
Any objection? Hearing none, motion is approved.
I move to approve and second reading Senate Bill number 2982. So move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, Senate Bill number 2982 is approved on second reading. Majority Floor Leader.
I move that we suspend consideration of Senate Bill number 2982.
There being no objection, motion is approved.
Minute suspension, Mr. President.
Session is suspended.
Move that we resume consideration of House Bill number 9904 under Committee Report number 454. This is the bill on the amendments to the Charter City of Bacoor. So move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, motion is approved.
Having sponsored the measure, I move to open the period of interpellation, and Mr. President, I move that I be recognized to sponsor and to interpellate our minority leader, Senator Aquilino Pimentel III.
Thank you, Mr. President.
The gentleman, the distinguished minority floor leader, is recognized as the sponsor, Senator J.V. Ejercito. The gentlemen have the floor.
With the permission of our sponsor? Is it? So with the permission of our sponsor, if you
Yes,
can
Mr. President.
As I understand the measure, Mr. President, we are going to recognize by law what the local government unit of Bacoor, Cavite already did through ordinance, which is the merger of certain barangays. Is that the main content of the bill, Mr. President?
Yes, I honor, Mr. President.
Actually, Mr. President, alam nyo yung pag-rationalize ng mga number of barangays, mahirap gawin yan and it really takes a political will. So, kung nagawa ng Bacoor City yan, Mr. President, pwede bang makwentuhan tayo? Ilan po bang, ano pong ginawa nila sa number of barangays nila at inayos nila o na-rationalize po nila?
Yes, Mr. President, according to the author of the proposal, Congressman Lani Mercado Revilla, who is incidentally here as our backstop, the city government found out that of the 73 barangays, 47 are not generating sufficient annual revenues to independently finance their daily operations and support their respective residents. Kaya po, nag-cut sila. So, from 73 barangays, naging 47 na lang po. So, baliktad po. Instead of increasing, nag-rationalize sila. So, this
mahirap gawin yan, Mr.
mahirap
President.
talaga. This is politically risky, Your Honor, Mr.
And it takes
President.
political will. Kaya nga, so we will congratulate the local government unit of Bacoor City kasi they have demonstrated political will. And I'm sure nagkonsulta din sila. This is with the consent of their constituents affected by the rationalization of the size and the number of their barangays. So yun po yung ginagawa natin. Pinaparecognize natin by law ang ginawa nila by ordinance para saan po? Bakit kailangan gawin yun?
That's yours. Okay.
So this one is ours.
So, we'll click once and then?
Yeah. And then this is our received copy. This tatakan mo lang.
So that our records will be matching, that then we'll also stamp this receipt.
Yeah.
Then you're receiving copy. Kaya, so same time, no? Same time, you know. Para lang yung record natin. 24 copies. Tapos ano yung time mo? Para-para mo sa lang.
Now, for the convenience of the senators, we will also furnish you with 24 copies of the complaint without the annexes.
Without the access.
You don't have to receive this. This is our extra copies.
All right, thank you very
The
much.
complaint.
Thank you very much,
So
Secretary.
that you don't have to reproduce the main complaint.
Okay, so.
Wala dito yung annexes
Okay, sir, may use.
and signatories. But in each envelope, you have the USB, which will contain,
Yes, sir, annexes. Annexes. Wala.
wala. Oh, meron.
Ito lang pala yung sa Di ba kasi yan, kung meron naman USB mo.
May USB.
Kung meron naman naiwan na staff, no?
May USB lahat. Itong isa lang wala. So,
Sige,
ito,
we will check later. Check then.
it has USB lahat for the annexes and signatures, no?
Okay.
For the convenience of the senators.
Thank you very
We
much.
have also
meron
put the
pala
names
game.
para ma-distribute nyo agad.
I suppose yung sa file natin.
Yeah.
Sige, so, kaya paano lang?
Para hindi nyo na
I'm
i-reproduce
sure,
yan.
I'm sure kompleto naman yung centers, but let's just check.
Okay. And then, Mr. Secretary, I would also like to turn over to you the decision of the plenary today to appoint the prosecutors, the 11 prosecutors who are all House members.
All right. Thank you very much, Secretary General. Again, the same procedure, we'll have this
Yes.
formally received by the Office of the Secretary. Same day, same time. Please attend.
Thank you. So that concludes our business today.
Yes, thank you very much, Secretary General.
Should you need any more
Yes.
documents, please get in touch. I have here with me my Deputy Secretary General for Legal.
Of course, Analu.
She will answer all your questions about the complaints and
Of course, I would not want to burden the Secretary General of the cumbersome duty of going over the impeachment complaints and annexes one by one. But just so for the record that we're clear that what the Senate received is what the House transmitted.
yes.
Each and every page, nothing missing, nothing lacking.
Yes.
So medyo laborious lang, but I hope you could spare one or two of your staff to help my staff as well in going over this documents.
Yes.
Para lang clear, no?
Yes. Okay.
So that might take a while.
Yes.
Hindi ko
Ikaw na lang.
Si Attorney
Okay.
tsaka si Marman.
I wouldn't want to spoil the Secretary General's plans for the night.
No, because I'm needed for the close.
Yes, because you have to go back to the House. Thank you very much, Secretary General. So,
Thank you.
I promise to wait for dinner yung staff na may Saan ano ba?
No. Both lawyers. Sorry.
Yeah.
Both lawyers.
Secretary, mayroon pa yata.
Konting atras yung mga kamay.
Yung ano, yung
Sumapo na kayo. Lalo mo kung magagawa. Mga secretary, dito naman po sa video po. Sa video po. Yan, video po. Thank you po.
So again, just to be clear about it, we will allow So the Senate staff and the House staff will now start this process of going over the impeachment complaint, page by page, document per document. So that everything is accurately described, everything is accounted for.
Okay.
But second, we just leave it at that. Thank you, second, and have a nice ride home. Bigyan ka namin ng pamilya na.
It's okay. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
I walk you down. Ano yun lang? Sino may iwan ka? Dalawa kayo. Sige. Ano yun muna? Ano ko na fine lang? Yung pinatugot ako ba? Thank you, boss. Thank you, boss. Masuk sih di bawah pasang ba? Saan po ang preference?
Ay, dito pa. Sige po. Thank you.
Rural Credit Guarantee Corporation.
Majority Floor Leader.
To sponsor the measure, I move to recognize Senator Cynthia Villar, Chairperson of the Committee on Agriculture, Food, and Agrarian Reform. To
Senator
deliver.
Villar is recognized. You may proceed, ma'am, to deliver your sponsorship speech.
Mr. President, I rise today to sponsor Senate Bill 2979 under Committee Report 524, which seeks to write off or condone unpaid loans and restructure the accumulated interest surcharges and penalties of dormant agrarian and agricultural loans availed of by our farmers, fisher folks, and agrarian reform beneficiaries. These loans were granted through the Department of Agrarian Reform, Department of Agriculture, Agriculture Credit Policy Council, Cooperative Development Authority, National Food Authority, and KEDAN and Rural Credit Guarantee Corporation. Agricultural loans play a critical role in sustaining and growing our agricultural sector. For our farmers and fisher folks, access to credit is essential. It provides them with the capital needed to invest in land, livestock, machinery, technology, and farm inputs. It enables them to increase productivity, combat pests and diseases, and recover from natural disasters. These measures give them a second chance by allowing them to regain access to financing opportunities. By relieving them of the long-standing financial burdens, we empower them to rebuild their livelihood, expand their businesses, explore new markets, and contribute to rural development and food security. The bill also aims to reinstate farmers with unpaid agrarian and agricultural debts into the financial and banking system, ensuring that they are not excluded from future credit opportunities and other government benefits due them. At the same time, it cleanses the books of government agencies by removing non-performing accounts that are over 10 years old. The one-time condonation covers unpaid interest, penalties, and surcharges of loan extended by the Department of Agrarian Reform, Department of Agriculture, Cooperative Development Authority, National Food Authority, the KEDAN, and that of the Rural Credit Guarantee Corporation, or the KEDANCOR, and those lodged under the Agricultural Credit Policy Council, as follows. Department of Agrarian Reform, secured through the Credit Assistance Program Beneficiaries Development, 140 million. Dutch Rural Development Assistance Program, 16 16,531,000. DAR Direct Lending Financing Program, 144,058,000. DAR Special Projects Office Direct Financing Program for ARBs, 187,204,000. DAR Special Projects Office Direct Window 3 Financing Program for ARBs, 487,802,000. National Food Authority Farmer Level Grain Center, 78,605,328.24. Cooperative Development Authority under the Cooperative Development Loan Fund, 367,642,380.68. Agricultural Credit Policy Council, 3,263,301,132.64, and Kedan Core Agricultural Credit Policy Council, 325,608,327.45, for a total of 6,522,959 and 107. Which loan shall the bill cover and how? Loans that have been uncollectible for more than 10 years. For loans, years shall be fully written off. For loans that are less than 10 years old, the debtor account holder shall be entitled to a one-time condonation of loan interest, penalties, and surcharges only, with the principal debt remaining. Loans with collateral shall not be eligible for condonation even if they have been in existence for over 10 years but may still qualify for condonation of interest, penalties, and surcharges, while the principal must still be paid. Condonation is an act of compassion on the part of the government. It offers a chance for our agrarian reform beneficiaries, farmers, and fisherfolk to regain financial stability, rebuild their credit standing, and return to productive and dignified farming and fishing. With that, Mr. President, I urge my colleagues to support the passage of this measure. Thank you very much.
Noted and entered into the records. Majority Floor Leader.
I move that we suspend consideration of Senate Bill number 2979.
Any objection? Hearing none, motion is approved.
Mr. President, Senator Ronald Bato de la Rosa would like to co-sponsor Senate Bill numbers 2978 and 2979.
Duly noted and entered into the records.
Mr. President, I move that we consider and adopt proposed Senate Resolution number 1299. This is the resolution congratulating and commending Johnny Arcilla for his exceptional career in the sport of tennis and for his recognition as a Philippine-Colombian Association Hall of Famer.
Any objection? Hearing none, consideration of the measure is now in order. Senator Pia Cayetano is recognized. You may proceed, ma'am.
Mr. President, there's another resolution, so may I ask that I deliver my manifestation will be delivered after the other resolution is also read.
Yes, Mr. President, I move first that we consider and adopt proposed Senate Resolution number 1300. This is the resolution congratulating and commending Marian Jade Cappadocia for her exceptional career in the sport of tennis and for her recognition as a Philippine-Colombian Association Hall of Famer.
Any objection? Hearing none, Senator Pia Cayetano is once again recognized, as I understand, to make a manifestation.
Thank you, Mr. President. Amid suspension, I have some videos or some photos to share while I deliver my manifestation.
Session is suspended. ma'am.
Yes, I will proceed, Mr. President, and I believe the pictures and videos will be shown as I speak. Mr. President, we have with us two amazing athletes. One is Johnny Arcilla and the other one is Marian Cappadocia. Johnny holds the male record for the most titles in the Philippine-Colombian Association history. The PCA is known as the biggest and most prominent tennis tournament in the Philippines. Johnny is the 10-time champion in the singles and the 14-time champion in the doubles category. He is the only male Filipino tennis player to achieve such a feat. This incredible feat has earned him a permanent place in the PCA Hall of Fame, where his legacy in Philippine tennis will be immortalized for generations to come. He earned the recognition of the ITF Davis Cup Commitment Award in 2013 for playing in the most Davis Cup ties by any Filipino. This award is given by the ITF to players who have shown long-standing dedication and commitment to represent their country in the Davis Cup over a significant period of time. He first represented the country in 2000 when he was just 19 years old. From 2000 to 2012, Johnny was the undisputed #1 tennis player in the Philippines and reclaimed it again in 2020. And now we go to Marian Cappadocia. Marian holds the record for the most titles in the PCA Open history in the female category. In December 2024, she earned her 10th PCA Open Championship title. She is also the only female Filipino tennis player to achieve such a feat. This incredible feat has earned her a permanent place as well in the PCA Hall of Fame, further cementing her status as the most decorated female player in the association's history. Marian obtained the bronze medal in the Southeast Asian Games in 2011 and 2021 and a gold medal in the 2018 Bahrain ITF Women's Double Tournament. She reached her highest individual ranking, reaching number one at the age of 15. Marian was also the Philippine #1 ranked player in the girls 14 and under category in 2010, the 16 and under in 2011, the 18 and under in 2012, and the #1 ranked women's singles player in 2012. She held the Philippine women's #1 spot from 2016 to 2022. Mr. President, these are real-life heroes who deserve the spotlight, shining examples for the next generation of athletes from humble beginnings and who continue to stay humble despite their exceptional achievements. Again, I congratulate Johnny Arcilla and Marian Cappadocia for their well-deserved recognition as PCA Hall of Famers and for their contribution to Philippine tennis and Philippine sports. Thank you, Mr. President.
Chair joins and other members of the Senate as well join Senator Pia Cayetano in congratulating Johnny Arcilla and Marian Cappadocia for their exceptional achievements. Majority Floor Leader.
Yes, Mr. President, with that, I move that we adopt proposed Senate Resolution number 1299 and 1300.
Any objection? Hearing none, proposed Senate Resolution number 1299 and 1300 is hereby adopted.
And I move that all senators present be made co-authors of the said resolution.
So ordered. Majority Leader.
Mr. President, at this juncture, we are in a receipt of the Conference Committee report on the disagreeing votes on House Bill number 9989. This is the bill on the revised Don Honorio Ventura State University Charter. And with that, Mr. President, on behalf of the chairperson of the Senate panel, Senator Alan Peter Cayetano, may I be recognized, Mr. President, to give the highlights of the Conference Committee report.
On behalf of Senator Cayetano, you may proceed, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, on behalf of the Senate panel and the Senate panel head, Senator Alan Peter Cayetano, to the Bicameral Conference Committee on the disagreeing votes of House Bill number 9989 and the revised Don Honorio Ventura State University Charter, I am pleased, Mr. President, to report in this August chamber the successful outcome of the Conference Committee. By strengthening the charter of DHVSU or DABSU, a century-old tertiary education institution in Pampanga, we are taking a step toward social quality and fostering development across the provinces. Among all the efforts of the government, education has proven time and again to be the great equalizer, the most powerful tool for Filipinos to uplift themselves and build a better future no matter their background. The new charter will not only rename and elevate DABSU as the Pampanga State University, it will also expand its academic programs as well as update the composition and powers of its governing board. These changes will enhance the university's ability to provide quality, accessible education to more Kapampangans and students in Central Luzon. Situated in a growing economic hub, this ensures that the university can continue to produce graduates who will drive businesses, NGOs, and institutions forward. The conferees, Mr. President, agreed to adopt HBN 9989 as amended by the Senate as the working draft in the bicameral conference committee meeting. Among the highlights of the reconciled version is the addition of a Vice President for Academic Affairs under Section 9. The Vice President for Academic Affairs will assist the President of Pampanga State University alongside the Vice President for Administration and Finance, Vice President for Research, Innovation, Training, and Extension, and the Vice President for Student Affairs and Services. All references to the university were also changed to Pampanga State University in the reconciled version. Mr. President, the changes in the working draft which we stated in the joint explanatory statement are reflected in the contents of the conference committee report. And so with that, Mr. President, I move that the joint explanatory statement be read into the records forming part of my report and that the result of the conference committee be ratified by this body.
Any objection? There being none, motion is approved. The conference committee report on the disagreeing provisions of House Bill number 9989 is hereby approved and ratified. Congratulations to the sponsor and author.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. As for minutes,
session is suspended.
Mr. President, at this juncture, I move that we resume consideration of Senate Bill number 2975 under Committee Report number 522. This is the bill on the Revised Animal Welfare Act. So move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, consideration of the bill is now in order.
Mr. President, having sponsored the measure, may we recognize the distinguished sponsor, Senator Grace Poe, in opening the period of interpellations and debate. So move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, period of interpellation is now open. Are there any registered interpellators?
Mr. President, there being no member who wishes to interpolate or ask any questions, I move that we close the period of interpellations and debate. So move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, period of interpellation and debate is now closed.
May I now move to open the period of amendments?
Period of amendments is now closed. Open, rather.
Are there any amendments, Mr.
There are
President?
no individual amendments.
There are no committee or individual amendments. I therefore, there is no member who wishes to propose any amendments. I move to close the period of amendments. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, period of individual and committee amendments now closed.
Mr. President, at this juncture, I move that we approve on second reading Senate Bill number 2975, subject to style. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, Senate Bill number 2975 is approved on second reading. Congratulations to the sponsor and author. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. President, at this juncture, I move that we transfer from the calendar for ordinary business to the calendar for special orders, Committee Report number 526. On Senate Bill number 2981, this is the bill providing for a new charter of the Land Bank of the Philippines. So move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, motion is approved. Senate Secretary is directed to read the title only of the measure without prejudice to inserting the entire text thereof into the records.
An act providing for a new charter of the Land Bank of the Philippines, repealing for the purpose Section 74 to 100 of Republic Act No. 3844 or the Agricultural Land Reform Code as amended.
To sponsor the
Majority
measure, Mr. President, I move to recognize our distinguished Deputy Majority Leader, Senator Mark Villar, Chairperson of the Senate Committee on Banks, Financial Institutions, and Currencies, to deliver his sponsorship speech. So moved, Mr. President.
Senator Villar is recognized. You may proceed, sir.
Mr. President, I rise to the occasion of sponsoring Senate Bill number 2981 under Committee Report number 526, otherwise known as an act providing for a new charter for the Land Bank of the Philippines. Created in 1963, the Land Bank of the Philippines, or LBP, played a crucial part in shifting agrarian reform policies. Its functions have evolved to include commercial banking, direct credit support for agrarian reform beneficiaries, and more recently, economic recovery efforts from the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. As a policy bank, LBP's core operations are grounded on sustainable development, responding to the financing requirements of small farmers and fisherfolk and MSMEs, among other sectors, that create employment and propel economic growth. With this new charter, LBP envisions contributing not only to developmental programs for the countryside, but also to countrywide and national programs. As of today, LBP in all 82 provinces and 533 branches, 74 branch-light units, 3,112 ATMs, 60 lending centers, 55 accounting centers, and 14 field support service centers. LBP is also committed to enhancing its digital infrastructure to meet the evolving needs of its customers. As of June 2024, LBP's major digital channel usage increased to 63%, with a total of 1.96 trillion pesos worth of transactions. In the same period, LBP extended loans amounting to 1.56 trillion to various sectors, particularly the farmers, fisherfolk, and agribusiness. LBP has 709.31 billion in outstanding loans, making up 45% of its total loan portfolio. On top of these, in 2023, the LPP achieved record remittances of 32.119 billion, making it the #1 GOCC in terms of dividends remitted to the national government. Mr. President, these achievements have encouraged this representation to pursue this measure, granting the LBP a standalone charter to significantly enhance its financial and institutional framework, expand capital raising abilities, and streamline its operational processes. Mr. President, here are some of the important features of the bill. The establishment of a standalone charter realigns the LBP's mandate with various functions that go beyond agrarian reform, enhancing its role as a GFI that serves key sectors. Features that improve access to capital, such as an increase in authorized capital stock and the potential for an initial public offering. These will allow LBP to expand its operations, raise capital without further government funding, and enhance its ability to support development programs. The diversified board of directors of 9 members will now include the NEDA Secretary as a new ex officio member and 3 independent directors, 1 from the agricultural sector and 2 from the private sector, with 2 additional directors in case private persons acquire shares of the bank. This creates a balanced leadership to navigate the dynamic landscape of the banking industry and ensures proper representation. Lastly, the engagement in financial leasing will help stimulate economic activity by facilitating the acquisition of movable and immovable assets needed for government projects. Mr. President, this representation hopes that this august chamber gives its unyielding support for this proposed measure to provide Land Bank with a streamlined charter, something that I know most of us here believe is long overdue. Before I conclude, I would also like to thank our dear colleague, Senator Cynthia Villar, and of course our Senate President, Chis Escudero, for your authorship of similar bills. Mr. President, let us help Land Bank amplify its contribution to the nation. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Mr. President, to allow our colleagues to study further the measure, I move that we suspend consideration of the said measure. So move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, motion is approved.
Ito? Some admin matters, Mr. President. Senator Ligarda would like to insert into the records her explanation of vote for Senate Bill number 2699 on Konektadong Pinoy Act. And may this representation also be made one of the authors of SBN 890. Thank you, Mr. President.
Duly noted and entered into the records.
Mr. President, this juncture, I move that we proceed to the Senate President's designation of Senate conferees to the Conference Committee on the Disagreeing Provisions of Senate Bill number 2893 and House Bill number 6452, the bills on the Virology Institute of the Philippines Act. I so move, Mr. President.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, motion is approved. The following members are hereby designated as Senate conferees to the Conference Committee on the Disagreeing Provisions of Senate Bill number 2893 and House Bill number 6452 as follows. Senator Pia Cayetano as chairperson, Senator Alan Cayetano, Senator Joel Villanueva, Senator Joseph Victor Ejercito, and Senator Aquilino Coco Pimentel on the part of the minority. So ordered.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. At this juncture, I move that we proceed to the Senate President's designation of Senate conferees to the Conference Committee on the Disagreeing Provisions of Senate Bill number 2558 and House Bill number 11355, the bills on the Livestock, Poultry, and Dairy Industry Development and Competitiveness Act. So move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, motion is approved. The following members are hereby designated as Senate conferees to the Conference Committee on the Disagreeing Provisions of Senate Bill number 2558 and House Bill number 1135 as follows. Senator Cynthia Villar as chairperson, Senator Ronald Bato de la Rosa, Senator Aquilino Coco Pimentel on the part of the minority. So ordered.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move that we proceed to the Senate President's designation of Senate conferees to the bicameral to the Conference Committee on the Disagreeing Provisions of Senate Bill number 2699 and House Bill number 6, the bills on the Konektadong Pinoy Act. So move, Mr. President.
Any objection? There being none, the motion is approved. The following members are hereby designated as Senate conferees to the Conference Committee on the Disagreeing Provisions of Senate Bill number 2699 and House Bill number 6, namely Senator Alan Peter Cayetano as chairperson, Senator Grace Poe, Senator Win Gatchalian, this representation, and Senator Aquilino Pimentel on the part of the minority. So ordered.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. May I ask for a minute suspension?
Session is suspended.
gentleman from Cavite, Senator Ramon Bong Revilla, is seeking the floor. I move that he be recognized, Mr. President.
The gentleman is recognized to make his manifestation of record. You may proceed, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a short manifestation. As Chair of the Committee on Civil Service, Government Organization, and Professional Regulation, may I manifest that the following bills, Senate Bill number 2007 and Senate Bill number 2503, be referred to a subcommittee to be thus created for the purpose of hearing the same, with Senator J.V. Ejercito as chair of the subcommittee. That's all, Mr. President.
Duly noted and entered into the records. Thank you, Senator Revilla. Majority Floor Leader.
We move for the reference of business, Mr. President.
Session is suspended for a minute. Majority Floor Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Before we proceed with the additional reference of business, just some admin matters, Mr. President. Senator Ligarda would like to insert into the records her co-sponsorship speech for resolution number 1300. So move, Mr. President.
Noted and entered into the
Mr.
records.
President, I moved for the previous motion. We proceed with the reference of business.
Secretary is directed to comply.
Committee Report Number 531, prepared and submitted by the Committees on Justice, Human Rights, Civil Service, Government Reorganization, and Professional Regulation. Yeah, to the ordinary business. Yes. In substitution of Senate Bills number 2623 and 2732, Senate Bill number 2987, entitled An Act Strengthening the Legal Staff of the Department of Justice, renaming it as the Office of the Chief State Counsel, redefining, expanding, rationalizing, and further professionalizing its organization and appropriating funds therefore. Sponsor, Senator Aquilino Pimentel.
To the calendar for ordinary business. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. President, this juncture I move that the transfer from the calendar for ordinary business to the calendar for special orders, Committee Report number 531 on Senate Bill number 2987. This is the bill on the Office of the Chief State Counsel Act. So move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, motion is approved. Our Minority Floor Leader is recognized to deliver his sponsorship speech. You may proceed, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, Mr. President, my dear colleagues, I stand before you today to sponsor and humbly seek your support for the passage of Senate Bill number 2987 under Committee Report number 531. The title of which is An Act Strengthening the Legal Staff of the Department of Justice, renaming it as the Office of the Chief State Counsel, redefining, expanding, rationalizing, and further professionalizing its organization and appropriating funds therefore. The 1987 Constitution of the Philippines mandates the President to ensure that our laws be faithfully executed. To ensure the faithful compliance provided under our Constitution, the Administrative Code created the Department of Justice to be the principal law agency that shall be both its legal counsel and its prosecutorial arm. These core functions of the DOJ are performed by the two main offices within the DOJ proper, the legal staff, serving as the legal counsel, and the National Prosecution Service, NPS, as the prosecution arm. With the growing mandate of the Secretary of Justice, the functions of the state counsels and employees of the DOJ legal staff have evolved and grown exponentially. It now serves as the backbone of the DOJ, silent yet indispensable warriors for justice. While their work may often take place behind desks and within the intricate papers of legal research, their impact resonates across our justice system and society as a whole. Pero sila po ay napag-iwanan in terms of salary and benefits with their counterpart in the department. In the words of our Chief State Counsel, Dennis Arvin L. Chan, our State Counsel's work is anything and everything legal or having legal implications. Kaagapay natin sila sa pagpasa ng mga makabuluhang batas para sa ikabubuti ng ating bayan. The DOJ legal staff, in fact, participated or has participated in the passage of several game-changing landmark laws such as number 1, RA number 12065 or the Philippine Archipelagic Sea Lanes Act. Number 2, RA number 9160 or the Anti-Money Laundering Act of 2001. Number 3, RA number 11641 or the Department of Migrant Workers Act. And number 4, RA number 12064 or the Philippine Maritime Zones Act. I just mentioned these laws as examples, but the listing is not comprehensive, Mr. President. When I was the Committee on Foreign Relations Chairman, they served as my legal advisors in the concurrence of important treaties such as the treaty between the Republic of the Philippines and the Russian Federation on extradition, and the treaty between the Republic of the Philippines and the Russian Federation on mutual legal assistance in criminal matters. And what greater contribution can we make than to ensure the passage of this vital measure, paving the way for meaningful change and a better future for our state councils and employees of the DOJ legal staff. The salient features of the proposed measure are: first, renaming the DOJ legal staff created under RA 2705 as amended by RA number 4152 as the Office of the Chief State Counsel. Second, it now clarifies the existing powers and functions of the DOJ legal staff. Third, we are providing qualifications for the state councils. Fourth, we are upgrading the position, ranks, and salary grades of the state councils. Fifth, we are providing the retirement and survivorship benefits to the DOJ legal staff, the same way that we are providing for their counterparts with the DOJ National Prosecution Services. And lastly, we are allowing automatic increase of all pension benefits of state councils, same as their counterpart DOJ National Prosecution Services. As we move forward, let us reaffirm our commitment to justice by empowering our DOJ state councils, strengthening their capacities, and ensuring that they continue to serve with excellence and honor. Justice is not just a principle, it is a responsibility. And together, we carry that responsibility forward. Maraming salamat po, Mr. President and my dear colleagues.
Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. President, to allow our colleagues to study further the measure, I move that we suspend consideration of Senate Bill number 2987. So move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, motion is approved.
Mr. President, at this juncture,
Reference.
I move that we proceed with the additional reference of business.
Secretary is directed to comply.
Resolution PSR number 1311, resolution congratulating and commending Dr. Beverly Lorraine Ho for being the recipient of the Leadership Award in Public Health Practice in the 2024 Harvard Chan School of Public Health Alumni Awards by Senator Lapid.
The Committee on Rules.
PSR number 1312, resolution urging the appropriate Senate committee to conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation into the visa-related issues faced by the Philippine national athletes and their coaches, which adversely affect their training and participation in international tournaments by Senator Cayetano P.
The Committee on Sports.
Committee reports. Committee report number 530 submitted jointly by Committees on Higher Technical and Vocational Education, Ways and Means and Finance on House Bill number 10405, introduced by Representative Ecleo et al., an act establishing a state college in the Lone District of the province of Dinagat Islands and appropriating funds therefore, recommending its approval with amendment. Sponsor Senator Cayetano Alan.
To the calendar rather for ordinary business. Resolution, sula kaya?
Notification ako. Notification.
Hindi kailangan. Session is suspended. Resumed. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. President, before we adjourn, may I remind our colleagues that there is a standing resolution, resolution number 21, entitled Resolution Authorizing All Regular Standing Committees, Oversight Committees, and Special Committees of the Senate to conduct hearing, meetings, and consultations during every recess of the Senate to have continuity in the process of passing pending proposed legislations and to conduct investigations on issues of national interest to aid in crafting relevant legislation. At this juncture, Mr. President, I move that we adjourn the session until 3 o'clock in the afternoon of Monday, June 2, 2025. So move, Mr. President.
There is a motion. Win. Is there any objection? There being none, session is adjourned until 3 o'clock in the afternoon of Monday, June 2, 2025.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you to our staff and Senate employees. Mabuhay ang Senado.
Magandang hapon sa ating lahat. It is my pleasure to call this legislative franchise hearing to order. Please rise for the prayer and national anthem.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Almighty God, our Father, we praise and thank you for this day. You have given us another opportunity to fulfill our mission as your instruments of peace and progress. Bless today's meeting and guide us in our discussions. Enlighten our minds in every decision that we make, and equip us with the responsibility of our elected position. May we effectively do our parts as public servants for your greater glory. All these we ask in Jesus'